Maimbag nga malem, maayong hapon, maabig awlo, maupay nga kolop, mayap agad panapon, siya makuyab, mapiya kauto alungan. Maray na hapon o magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Isang masayang pagbati po sa inyong lahat ngayong buwan ng wikang pambansa. Bagamat ngayon ay buwan ng wika, hayaan niyo po sana kaming makapagsalita ng magkahalong Filipino at Ingles. Malugod namin kayong tinatanggap sa ika-4 na webinar series ng Philippine Commission on Women ngayong 2021 na pinamagatang Beyond Attribution, Use of the HGDG to Mainstream GAD Elements in the Project Development Cycle. Sa kasalukuyan, ang Metro Manila at ang ibang mga karatig na probinsya ay sumasailalim sa ECQ mula ika-6 hanggang ika-20 ng Agosto para na rin po mapigil ang mabilis na pagkalat ng COVID-19, lalo na po ngayon na may Delta variant. We hope that such news is not a cause for us to panic, but to consider it as our reminder to stay at home, be safe, and protect our health from the virus. For those who have not yet been inoculated, please try to register to your city or municipality's COVID-19 vaccine program so you can also be vaccinated soon. This is also for our own protection. This is also the best time to take advantage of our online learning sessions such as this webinar from the comforts of our homes. To those who are in the office under the skeleton workforce, let us keep observing the health and safety protocols. Ako po si Nina Salonga ng Philippine Commission on Women, Technical Services and Regional Coordination Division, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Just recently, PCW has conducted the 3rd webinar series, and we are sure that many of you, if not all, have already attended the session on gender analysis, tools, and praxis. It is heartwarming to know that right now, we have about 496 participants already in the Zoom training room. So welcome everyone from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Will also be uploaded in the dedicated page of PCW website for this GAD webinar series. You can see the link in the screen or in the chat box, so there's no need to request individually for the copy of the presentations. May we repeat po, no, for those who are new in the room, no need for us to be asked about whether the presentation materials will be provided. Yes, they will be provided. You can just check the PCW website. Please also note that all the video recordings of our GAD webinars will also be uploaded and can be viewed on Facebook page at PCW.gov.ph. Again, at PCW.gov.ph. Please feel free to download as well the materials for your in-house GAD capacity development sessions or re-echoing. Again, there's no need for us to be emailed about the presentation materials as these will be available on PCW website. To start our program, let us now begin with the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, followed by a GAD's Advocate's Prayer.
Noon pa man, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ilim sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa lilim mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, gulat na ng pag-ibig, sa magdulong
Okay. So may we also request for everyone to include in our prayers our brothers and sisters who are being affected by the COVID-19, who also got sick. May they recover soon. For those who are being affected by our economic situation due to COVID-19, may they also recover from their situation. And may we also include in our prayers our fellows who are in armed conflict. Okay. So at this moment, may we call on our Deputy Director for Operations to deliver her welcome remarks. Let us all welcome Director Maria Christine Josefina G. Balmes. A warm
Maraming
virtual
salamat,
clap for
Nina.
our Director. Welcome, Didi Christine.
Yes, maraming salamat. Bilang parte ng selebrasyon ng ating buwan ng Wikang Pambansa, hayaan niyo po na ako ay batiin kayong lahat gamit ang ating pambansang wikang Filipino. Isang mapagpalayang araw para sa mga kapwa ko kawani ng gobyerno at tagapagtaguyod ng Gender and Development na nakadalo sa ating webinar series ngayong araw. Ikinatutuwa ko na sa kabila ng inyong schedule ay nagawa ninyo pa ring makilahok sa ating pang-apat na PCW GAD Webinar series ngayong taong 2021. Bagaman ang NCR ay nasa gitna ng Enhanced Community Quarantine, ay marapat na ituloy pa rin natin ang ating layunin na isulong ang gender mainstreaming at parte nito ay ang capacity development exercise tulad ng ating webinar series ngayon. We started this year's PCW GAD Webinar series on the basic and fundamental GAD concepts held last March 18, 2021. Through these, we were able to equip the participants with a basic knowledge and understanding of gender and development, or GAD. Our second GAD webinar held last May 12 focused on the fundamentals of gender mainstreaming and GAD mandates, where our participants were introduced to the concept of strategy of gender mainstreaming. This was followed by our third webinar on gender analysis, tools and praxis, held last June 23, where our participants were equipped with knowledge and understanding in gender analysis and gender mainstreaming evaluation framework, or GMF. We are hopeful that the previous GAD webinars have deepened your knowledge and appreciation on GAD and have prepared you for our webinar session today entitled Beyond Attribution, Use of the HGDG or Hagadaga to Mainstream GAD Elements in the Project Development Cycle. This webinar aims to make the participants understand the importance of utilizing the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, or HGDG, in Project Development Cycle. Likewise, it will highlight how government agencies can integrate GAD elements in their flagship, mainstream, or banner programs and projects. We are optimistic that with your active participation, you will be able to deepen your knowledge on GAD and put this into practice in your respective agencies to strengthen our campaign towards women's empowerment, gender equality, and inclusive development, where women, men, and people of diverse SOGI-SC enjoy equitable access, opportunities, and outcomes. As we recognize the success of Filipina athletes like Hidelin Diaz and Nesty Petesio, who brought home medals from the Tokyo Olympics, let us also be reminded that many more women and girls carry the potential to break barriers and succeed in their field of interest. So let us do our part as duty bearers and GAD advocates in ensuring that we create an enabling environment where they are celebrated and encouraged. As we are set to also celebrate the National Heroes Day on August 30, may we all be reminded of the indispensable roles and contributions of the Juanas in our history. And may our passion and dedication towards gender equality and women's empowerment be ignited from their examples. We hope that their footprints and contributions be a reminder to all of us to strive and look forward to attaining a society that recognizes and celebrates diversity, equity, and gender equality. Muli, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. I wish you all a safe and productive day.
Thank you very much, Didi Christine, for encouraging our participants to actively engage themselves in this webinar and to ask and clarify concerns that will help them understand further the purpose and use of the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, or HGDG, or what we commonly call as the Hagadaga. Of course, it is also good to know that you encourage them to learn further about the related tools to deepen their knowledge on the GAD and apply them in their own respective agencies. And finally, for encouraging everyone to believe in every Juana in our country. This session will help us further appreciate the objectives, principles, and application of the Hagadaga in plan and budget and GAD accomplishment report preparation. This session will also discuss how elements of the Hagadaga checklist can be integrated during the project identification, design, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation stages of the project cycle, as well as identify mitigating strategies and corresponding activities using project documents. Before we proceed to our actual session, allow us to share the results of the GAD Training Needs Assessment, or TNA, and pretest and the profile of the participants for this day's activity. May we call on PCW GAD Specialist Larry Ailix Oribio, the lead coordinator of this webinar, to present. Larry?
Hello. Thank you very much, Nina, for that wonderful introduction. My name is Larry Ailix Oribio from Philippine Commission on Women, and I'm going to present to you the training needs assessment and the pretest results of those who have registered through our webinar 4, which is the Beyond Attribution Use of HGDG to Mainstream GAD Elements in the Project Development Cycle. So based on our approved registered participants, we have 955 participants, but as we can see right now, during our session, we only have 609, and we hope that all of those who have registered, pwede pa po sana silang makahabol, and we hope that they are all safe. They are all safe from COVID-19, and they will also have a chance to enter in our webinar kahit po humabol na lang po sila. So ayan, we have 955 registered participants. Thank you so much po sa inyong pag-register. So right now, we are going to discuss the division of the participants' profile by sex. We have males, we have 209, and female, we have 746 packs. So nakikita po natin dito, medyo marami-rami po ang ating mga female participants compared to our male participants. By age naman po, we have 18 to 30 years old, we have 28.80% or 275 participants. 31 to 40 is 28.9 or 276 participants. 41 to 50 years old, we have 23.46% or 224 participants. 51 to 60 years old, we have 16.34% or 156 participants. And 61 years old and above, we have 2.51% or 24 participants. So as you can see po, no, yung distribution po natin, it leans towards the younger generation po, yung mga participants natin. We have marami po talaga yung 40 and above pag kinumbine po natin siya. It almost as if comprises half of our participants. So maganda po ito, marami pong papalit sa ating mga GFPS if ever po na maipagpatuloy po nila itong learning sessions natin. So we have by institutional affiliation, yung mga participants profile po natin. We have attached agencies, we have 9.21%. Bureaus, we have 3.77%. Constitutional commissions, 2.51%. Government-owned and controlled corporations, 9.32%. Judiciary, we have 0.52%. And legislative, we have 0.1%. And local government units, we have 13.19%. National government agencies, we have 37.91%. Other executive offices, we have 1.36%. State universities and colleges, we have 17.49%. And other government instrumentalities, we have 4.61%. So nakikita po natin dito na medyo marami-rami po ang ating mga local government units and also state universities of colleges, but they are trumped over by our national government agencies, which comprise po yung pinakamalaki po nating percentage ng mga participants by institutional affiliation. So next we have by position in the GFPS. We have our GFPS chairperson. Meron po tayong mga kasamahan na comprising 7.85%. GFPS Executive Committee, we have 7.85%. GFPS Technical Working Group, we have 36.34%. GFPS Secretariat, we have 20%. And I am not yet a member of our agency GFPS. We have 27.96%. Hopefully po, no, itong mga not yet a member of our agency, we can contribute po to our gender and development advocacies. By being a member na rin po ng ating GFPS, mas strengthen po ang ating advocacy if we can be a member of the GFPS din po. Ayan, so yung mga participants profile naman natin by year as a GFPS member, we have less than 1 year, we have 21.26%. 1 year to 5 years, we have 43.35%. 6 years to 10 years, we have 7.96%. More than 10 years, we have 3.04%. And not applicable or those na hindi po siguro member or hindi na naging member, we have 24.40%. Sana po no, by sustainability, these less than 1 year and mga 1 year to 5 years, makaabot po talaga sila ng 10 years as GFPS member in order to contribute to our advocacies. Ayan. So we are now going to present the training needs assessment results. So next slide, please. We are going to answer the question, have you attended a learning or orientation session on Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines? If yes, how many sessions? So as you can see po, no, those who have attended 1 to 2 trainings are 47.12%. Those who have attended 3 to 5 trainings are 8.59%. And those who have attended 5 trainings and more are 2.2%. However, those who have not yet attended HGDG learning or orientation sessions is 42.09%. So medyo marami-rami po ito no, kung i-translate natin based doon sa ating mga registered participants. And I hope magkakaroon po tayo ng maraming learning sa session po natin this afternoon dito po sa mga hindi pa nakapag-attend ng learning sessions natin ever. We have you participated in the preparation of your agency project design, proposals, and accomplishment reports? We have 70.47% po ang yes and 29.53% po ang no. So I believe kahit po hindi po tayo naka-attend ng mga HGDG learning sessions, itong 70.47% po natin ay meron pong naka-attend na rin po sa mga preparation ng mga agency design, project proposals, and accomplishment report. Ayan, next slide. We have you used the HGDG checklists in the preparation of agency project program proposals or reports to be attributed in the GAD plan and budget? This is a very significant finding because 48.48% po ang nagsabi ng yes, but we have more than half of the participants, that's 51.52% po ang nagsabi ng no. So sana po dito sa 51.52%, marami po talaga tayong matututunan this afternoon. Now we have the level of familiarity with HGDG. How well do you know the following parts of the HGDG tool? We have interpreting the HGDG scores. We have yung no idea po natin ay 32%, medyo marami-rami po. And then meron po tayong know little about it, medyo 42% po, marami-rami din. We have familiar with it, 24%, and confident to talk about it, 2% lang po. So ayan, next slide po. Guide for scoring, we have no idea din po, malaki-laki, 37%. Know little about it, 39%. Familiar with it, we have 22%, and confident to talk about it, 2%. Now we have generic checklists. Checklist, we have box 7A. We have the no idea is 41%. Know little about it, we have 38%. Familiar with it is 19%, and confident to talk about it, we have 2%. We have sector-specific checklists. The no idea for this is 43% of our participants. Medyo malaki-laki po. And know little about it, we have 38%. Familiar with it, we have 18%. And confident to talk about it, we have 1%. And then lastly, we have the project implementation, management, monitoring, and evaluation, or PIME. We have no idea, 38% din po. Know little about it, we have 42%. Familiar with it, 18%. And confident to talk about it, we have 2%. So based po dito sa section na ito, no, medyo konti pa lang po talaga ang confident na pag-usapan, or confident po ang knowledge nila sa ating HGDG. Next, we have, do you agree with the following statements? How do the participants feel about HGDG? We have the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines aims to achieve gender equality through gender-responsive programs and projects. So it's good to note po na 94.84% naman po sa ating mga participants ay agree po sila. And then disagree po ay 0.63% and not sure 4.50%. So hopefully itong mga not sure po natin magkakaroon na po ng stand kung about po dito sa ating question number 1. Now we have question number 2. Direct GAD activities can be assessed during the 10 core elements of a gender-responsive design according to HGDG. So ang nag-agree po dito ay 71.62%. Nag-disagree po dito ay 5.76% and not sure we have 22.62%. Now this is a note for our speakers po. We can clarify this later sa ating mga participants kung ano po ba ang tama dito sa question number 2 natin. Now we have, there is no limit to the banner, flagship, regular, mainstream programs and projects of the agency that can be attributed to the GAD budget using the HGDG. Ang nag-agree po dito ay 54.03%. Nag-disagree po dito ay 18.32% and not sure ay 27.64%. Again, this is also a significant finding po sa ating TNA. Mamaya baka maklaro po ito sa ating sessions with our speakers. Next, we have a gender-responsive project design considers the participation of women and men in problem identification, generation, and use of sex-disaggregated data, and conduct of gender analysis and identification of gender issues. Ang nag-agree po dito ay 92%. Medyo happy po kami doon. And then nag-disagree ay 0.73%. And not sure po natin ay 7.23%. Next, we have the project leaders or managers should be supportive of GAD and gender equality goals. Nag-agree po dito are 96.02%, nag-disagree ay are 0.52%, and not sure po ay 3.46%. And government employees with permanent or regular appointments should be involved in implementing GAD project initiatives. Ang nag-agree po dito ay 91.73%, nag-disagree ay 2.93%, and not sure ay 5.34%. Then in project identification and analysis on who has access to and control of sources and benefits should be considered. Nag-agree po dito ay 90.47%, nag-disagree ay 2.30%, and not sure ay 7.23%. Then we have a gender-responsive project has clearly stated gender equality goals, objectives, outcomes, or outputs. Ang nag-agree po dito ay 96.13%, disagree ay 0.52%, and not sure is 3.35%. And the gender-responsive project should have strategies and activities that match the gender issues and gender equality goals identified. We have nag-agree po ay 96.13%, disagree ay 0.52%, and not sure is 3.35%. And lastly, for this section, we have a gender-responsive project should improve the women's welfare and status as one of its results. So ang nag-agree po dito ay 93.19%, disagree ay 2.41%, not sure is 4.40%. So that's it for this section po, no? And lastly, we have our pre-test results. So how well did you fare po sa ating pre-test results? We have what are the specific objectives of the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines. So as you can see po, presented na po natin dito yung mga ano natin. But 714 po sa inyo, I got the wrong answer. But then 241 po ay nakatama naman po. So kailangan lang po natin siguro i-review ito mamaya sa ating session. Next question, please. We have what are the types of HGDG design checklist? We have generic, sector-specific, and facilities design checklist. So ang nakatama po dito ay 314 at ang nagkamali po ay 441. We have what checklist is used to assess design of programs, projects that do not belong to any sector? So the answer is box 7A. We have the generic checklist, wherein 469 po ang nagkamali and 486 po ang tumama. And then we have the HGDG blank checklist reviews whether or not the mitigating strategies or interventions to enhance the GAD rating of the major program or project have been implemented. So the answer po is PIME. We have 649 po ang nakatama and 306 po ang hindi po nakatama. And then the HGDG PIME checklist is composed of, we have the answers is box 16 and box 17, GAD checklist for project implementation management and GAD checklist for project monitoring and evaluation. 660 po ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot at 295 naman po ang hindi nakakuha. We have which is not an element of box 16 GAD checklist of project management and implementation. So the answer po ay hindi siya nabilong sa group. Project database includes sex disaggregated and gender related information. Mamaya po baka makita natin kung ano po ba talaga ang laman ng box 16. We have 702 po ang hindi nakatama and 253 po ang nakatama. Now we have which is an element of box 17 GAD checklist for monitoring and evaluation. So ang answer po dito are all of the above as you can see po sa choices natin. And 607 po ang nakatama and 348 po ang hindi po nakatama. Okay, number 8 po. The accomplished HGDG design checklist together with the project design documents are required attachment to the blank of the agency for GAD budget attribution. So the answer for this is GAD plan and budget, and 503 po ang nakatama and 452 po ang hindi nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Now, the accomplished HGDG PIME checklist together with project accomplishment or completion reports are required attachments to the agency's blank if there are PAPs or programs, activities, and projects for attribution to the GAD budget. We have the answer, which is the GPB accomplishment report. We have 416 po ang nakatama and 539 po ang hindi nakakuha ng tamang sagot. The HGDG design and PIME checklists have a total overall score of 20 points. 20 points po siya. We have 627 po ang nakatama and 329 po ang hindi nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Now, there are 3 possible responses to the questions on the HGDG design and PIME checklists. These are the no, partly yes, and yes. So nakatama po ay 431 and 524 po ang hindi nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Now we have blank members are among the users of the HGDG. Mamaya po ay madidiscuss ito na program and project developers, implementers, monitoring and evaluation team, and GAD focal point system members ang gumagamit po ng HGDG. We have 713 po ang nakatama. Now we have a program or project is considered gender sensitive when the overall score using the design checklist is between 14.9 and 19.9. The answer for this is false po kasi 15 to 19.9 po. Mamaya titingnan po natin dito kung paano po natin ito na bakit ganito po ang sagot natin. So we have the PIME checklist has a total of blank elements. So 9 po ang tamang sagot and 136 po ang nakatama and 812 po ang hindi nakakuha ng tamang sagot. And lastly, when accomplishing the HGDG checklist, it is not necessary to provide means of verification to support the assessment of program or project design, including project implementation, management, and M&E. So the answer for this is false po. Mamaya i-discuss po bakit kailangan ng MOVs, and ang nakatama po ay 515 at ang hindi po nakakuha ng tamang sagot ay 440. So that's it po for the training needs assessment and the profile of our registered participants. Back to you, Nina.
Maraming salamat, Larry. So we have observed in our profile of the participants na na-mention ni Larry, medyo may kabataan po ang batch ng ibang participants natin. Hopefully, they can be passed on with the skills ng related sa HGDG and other gender and development skills para mapagpatuloy po ang gender and development programs ng ating mga agencies. And we also noticed then that meron pong emphasis na in terms of confidence when it comes to scores, the HGDG checklist, the gender generic and sector-specific checklist, medyo may kababaan po yung part ng confidence level po, no? Kung magiging confident ba tayo to discuss about it, to interpret it, and hopefully this level of confidence can be boosted later on after we have gone through the session today. And for those who have not achieved completely yung ating goal to get a perfect score sa ating pre-test, no worries. Please listen to the sessions and hopefully you can improve your answers in the post-test later on. So, of course, it's also important that we don't just aim for the high scores, but we also aim to understand it so that when we finish this session, we can apply them. Those skills that we have learned today will be applied later on in our work. So thank you very much. Hold on. All right. For this afternoon's webinar, we will have two topics. The first discussion will center on the use of the HGDG, generic and sector-specific checklists through application of GAD elements in program project design. And the second session will focus on the use of HGDG PIME checklist to assess the gender responsiveness of the implementation, management, monitoring, and evaluation of programs and projects. The speaker for the first session is a nurse by profession. She has served as a nurse volunteer during the 2013 medical mission for Typhoon Yolanda victims in Leyte, Region 8. Since 2014, she has been serving as the Gender and Development Focal Person or Specialist of the TESDA Women's Center, providing technical assistance on GAD programs and activities to the TESDA Central and Regional Offices, and updating of the gender-sensitive curriculum of the agency. She also had the privilege to serve as a resource person for GAD-related training programs, as requested by the DOST, STII, UCPB, Commission sa Wikang Filipino, LGUs, and academic institutions, to name a few. A senior technical education and skills development specialist from TESDA and a certified member of the National GAD Resource Pool, or the NGRP, since 2018. Let us all welcome Jonah P. Tabu Tatao. A warm virtual round of applause. Good afternoon, Jonah.
Good afternoon, Nina. And good
Welcome.
afternoon to all the 668 participants connected now via this Zoom webinar of the Philippine Commission on Women. Thank you for that introduction, Nina.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. And also, since you mentioned that we are also observing the Buwan ng Wika, allow me to mention, maupay nga kulop haaton nga tanan, emoso aware-waray. So magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. As mentioned earlier, I am from the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, particularly the TESDA Women's Center, and we are serving as the GAD Secretariat for the TESDA GAD Focal Point System. So with the guidance of my Center Chief, we are very privileged and thank you for this opportunity to be one of your resource persons for this GAD webinar. And also, as a member of the PCW GAD Resource Pool, we really would like to commend everyone connected here. Lalo na po, when I was hearing the results of the pre-test, thank you very much again. And we are seeing your commitment and your eagerness to know more about gender and development. So, yung mga unsure kanina at yung ilang mga sagot, nais nating magkaroon ng malinaw na understanding when it comes to gender and development and in this presentation about a very significant gender analysis tool. All right, so with that, definitely if you have any question, as mentioned kanina, you can use the Q&A tab. And later, we will definitely use some of the features of Zoom because hindi kayo makapag-on ng audio. So definitely, you'll be using the chat box for other responses and the poll question din po ng Zoom. So I'm really excited to see your responses maya-maya for that. Okay, so let's make it as interactive as possible kahit nagamit natin ito virtually. All right. Okay, so right now we are flashing the slides for this part. I am tasked to present the use of Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, or HGDG. As mentioned kanina, we can also say hagadaga para sa easy na pagbaybay nito. And we are going to talk about the hagadaga generic and sector-specific checklists. But particularly, if you want to understand how can we apply GAD elements in the program or project design. Yan ang scope ng ating presentation ngayon. Okay, so before we start, and going back to the results of the TNA kanina, I understand na merong kalahati who are not yet familiar with the term, so nais nating simulan ito in a very inspiring and motivating way. So let me share 3 very inspiring information about this very important gender analysis tool that we are going to discuss now about the hagadaga. First, from the National Economic Development Authority or NEDA and PCW, itong nag-formulate ng hagadaga tool na ito. Simula pa noong ito ay na-formulate taong 2004, ito ang kanilang mensahe. We call for the continuous support of all government agencies and our development partners in the utilization and promotion of the guidelines with the goal of fulfilling women's human rights and achieving gender equality and development for all. Yeah. Okay, so very inspiring po siya. Let me just mute some of the background noise kanina. Yan, all right. So, bakit ito inspiring? Napakalinaw, no? From the government agencies, anumang sektor ka, local government units ka man, development partners as well, academe ka man, state universities ka man, GOCCs ka man, matagal na nilang sinasabi and requesting for the support nating lahat sa pag-promote sa paggamit ng hagadaga, ng guidelines na ito. And our goal is to fulfill women's human rights and achieving gender equality and development for all. Now, these concepts, gender equality, pagkakapatay-patay ng lahat, development, pag-unlad ng lahat, hindi lang ito basta terminology. Later, we will understand bakit ito mahalaga noon hanggang ngayon as our primary goals. At lalo na, we don't set aside women's human rights. Pag-uusapan natin ito. So matagal na itong we are requesting for the support of everyone. That's why we're happy that we have many participants now for this GAD webinar. What else? Let me share another inspiring message. Yan. Maybe some of you may ask, may COVID-19 pandemic, simula last year hanggang ngayon, mahalaga pa ba na pag-usapan ng gender and development? Mahalaga pa ba yung hagadaga tool na yan? We would like to share a portion of an advocacy brief of the World Health Organization para klarong-klarong, ma-appreciate natin ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon. Sa kanilang article about gender and COVID-19 dated May 14, 2020, ito yung maaga pa ng hard lockdown dito sa Metro Manila, for example. Now, the World Health Organization calls on its member states and all global actors. Kasama ba ang Philippines? Yes. Original tayong member state dito. And countries are advised to incorporate a focus on gender into their COVID-19 responses. Last year pa yan at hanggang ngayon. Sinasabi na we should not set aside gender issues, gender and development concerns, kahit na may pandemya. Kasi marginalized na nga noon ang mga sektor na ito, lalo na ngayon, di ba? Mas greatly affected sila ngayong may pandemic. So galing na yan sa World Health Organization. Now we know health and safety is a priority, but again, very important pa rin that we continue, as mentioned by our Deputy Director kanina, patuloy pa rin tayo sa ating gender and development mainstreaming. And lastly, gusto ko itong i-share from McKinsey and Company. This is a parang globally known consultancy firm or organization. They give they give advices to governments, to organizations through strategic management. Ang sabi nila, what is good for gender equality is good for the economy and society as well. Yan. So, napakahalaga, no? Ngayong nais nating mapataas ang ekonomiya, ang estado ng mga tao, ang kabuhayan ng mga tao, then again, very important strategy dito pa rin na magpatuloy tayo sa gender equality. So I do hope na nakapag-increase ito ng inyong awareness, and it would answer some of the questions kung bakit ito significant that we attend, we complete and understand yung ating pag-uusapan ngayon about the Hagadaga tool. Okay, so again, this is our topic. Hagadaga, generic and sector-specific checklist, and how can we apply these GAD elements into the program or project design. So before I start, let's try this poll survey ng ating Zoom. Here is my first question. Will be assisted by the PCW Tech team mamaya. So this time, later you will see the poll survey tab. Just answer there directly. Thank you for that. Yan. So we'll be given enough time, I think a minute. I have a timer to make sure na kayo ay makapagbigay ng inyong sagot.
Yes,
Ayan.
so
Thank you for
may we
answering our
remind everyone
question.
po.
Yes,
Remind
thank you.
lang po
Thank you,
natin,
Nina.
sumagot po sila sa poll feature, hindi po sa chat box. Thank you.
I see. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So while they're answering, nakikita naman nila clearly yung ating tanong. I'm going to read our poll question number 1. Which of the following best describes a gender-responsive program or project design? Best described. So isa lang po yan. You have 4 options. 1, proper and successful implementation of a major program. B, utilization of a gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation system. C, collection and proper use of census-aggregated data. And lastly, D, relative gender issues were identified and addressed in the program or project. Yan. So I do hope that you can now choose your best answer and click submit para maisama na natin sa ating poll survey. Okay? All right. Okay. So with that, let's give 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Can we now close our poll survey? And let's please share the results to all our participants. Thank you. Yan. All right. So as you can see in the result of our first poll question po, 461 participants have answered. Yun, pinakamataas, 71%, letter D. Relevant gender issues were identified and addressed in the program or project. Sinundan ito ng letter B, 13%. Utilization of a gender-sensitive M&E, monitoring and evaluation. Next, we have letter A na halos magkaparehas ng letter C, proper and successful implementation of a major program, that's 8%, and 7% naman para sa collection and proper use of census-aggregated data. Ayan. So, wala naman tong scoring. Again, your opinion, your answer, so thank you very much for that. Let us now stop sharing and let me go back to my slide po para dyan. Yan. Okay. Yan. Thank you po. All right. So, kanina pinakamarami ang letter D. Pasagutin na po natin. And our answer will directly come from the GAD Guidelines. Doon mismo, page 23. Mababasa niyo po yan. A gender-responsive design addresses gender equality issues that have been identified in a gender analysis. So, correct ang mga naka-letter D. So, ito ang tamang sagot natin. Addresses gender equality issues that have been identified in a gender analysis of the development problem and issues related to project management processes, outputs, and outcomes. Mamaya, mas palalawakin natin yan, mas maiintindihan po natin yan. Bakit ganun? Let's go back to the choices kanina. Ang tanong natin, alin sa mga ito best describes a gender-responsive program or project design? Saan nagre-respond? Sa gender issues. Kanino? Sa anumang gap or inequality sa pagitan ng babae, ng lalaki, ng marginalized sector. Ganun ba ang programa ng isa? So ano ang best description nito? Yan. And the correct answer is letter D. Bakit? Kasi ang A, nasa implementation ka na. Diba? Nasa design cycle pa lang tayo. Hindi ibig sabihin na successful implementation mo, naka-document ka, is gender responsive na. Ang tanong, were you able to reach those target beneficiaries na vulnerable at higit na nangangailangan na iyong serbisyo. Kaya mahalaga siya doon pa lang sa design phase. Hindi kagad, i-ano na yan, i-deploy na yan, gawin na yan, i-implement na yan ang activity. Sa letter B naman, very important ang gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation system, right? However, nasa M&E ka na, monitoring and evaluation. Ang tanong, is it connected again sa issues ng gusto ng clients mo, ng beneficiaries mo, sa design phase pa lang? And C, very important na meron kang SDD, Sexist Aggregated Data, right? You collect it, you use it. Saan mo ginamit? Sa disenyo dapat. Sa first, phase pa lang dapat yun ginagamit. So, important yung iba, pero again, the relevant gender issues, if they were identified and addressed sa iyong program or project, then gender-responsive program or project yan. Pero hindi lang tayo ang magsasabing gender-responsive yan. We'll be using a tool, and this is the tool that we are going to discuss now, the HGDG design checklist. All right? So I do hope mas naging excited kayo doon sa naging poll survey natin. Now, because of the limited time, I was given an hour and 20 minutes. Here is the outline of my presentation. 5 parts lang naman po. Number 1 is the background and rationale. Pag-uusapan natin, paano tayo nakabuo ng HGDG checklist na ito? Ano ang rationale or significance nito? Second would be the core GAD elements. Na-mention kanina, ilan nga ba ang GAD elements na mahalaga na nakikita sa ating document, for example? So pag-uusapan natin yan. Third is that, how do we apply this? Para hindi lang hanggang theory, hindi lang hanggang terminology, how do we apply this? And we'll be using a virtual exercise. Hindi naman tayo makapag-breakout room, napakarami niyo po, I can see 670 participants, but definitely, since I am from TESDA, we'll be sharing a validated, a gender-responsive program of TESDA. So makikita niyo po paano namin ito sinagutan at paano ito tamang-tama doon sa requirement ng ating HGDG tool. So we'll be sharing that sa part 3. Part 4 is the application of the HGDG design. Saan? In the GAD plan and budget. At naging pre-test niya yan, di ba? The HGDG design, kapartner siya ng GAD plan and budget. So pag-uusapan natin yan mamaya kung paano. And lastly, recommendations and tips. We started inspiring kayo, motivating kayo. We want to end this presentation as well na kayo excited to read and use this tool with the goal of enhancing your document, your policy, or your guidelines. Okay? All right. So with that, again, the same energy, the same participation, we would really appreciate that as we go along with our presentation. Let's start with the background. Yan, pag-usapan natin, paano nga ba nabuo ang ating HGDG checklist? Yan. So as mentioned kanina, this was formulated in 2004 through the initiative of NEDA and of PCW, and of course, funded by the ODA GAD Network, or the official development assistance. Ito yung foreign funding, agencies or organizations such as the Asian Development Bank, United Nations Development Program. So sila po ang nagpondo for this guidelines as well. So bakit? Bakit napakahalaga nito? This is aimed at setting the standards in integrating gender perspectives in development programs and projects. Kanino? Government agencies, donor agencies, other stakeholders. So very important na talagang diverse ang ating participant, no? Nasa government agency ka man, sa national or regional ka man, local government unit ka man, or GOCC, or part ka man ng SUC or academe. Very important that we understand na hindi na tayo magkakanya-kanyang requirements, questionnaire, checklist. We have this standard checklist na, this tool to integrate gender perspectives in our development programs and projects. And when we say development programs or projects, ito yung mga proyekto or programa na dinedesenyo natin, depende sa ating mandato at sa ating mga opisina, hindi ba? So we want to make sure na nagagamit natin itong HGDG checklist na ito. So again, harmonized na ito, convergence na to, ito na yon na ating standards na pwede nating maging reference at dapat nating gamitin talaga. Actually, minimum standards nga or requirements pero these are the core standards and elements na dapat nating matutunan. Okay? So aside from that, balikan natin ang konteksto. So, ano ang mandato natin? Saan nanggaling na pulisiya yan? Why do we have the Hagadaga checklist? Let me start with 1991. Yan, Republic Act 7192, Women in Development and Nation Building Act. Yan. So if you're familiar sa mga salitang, the state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. Ito yun, ito yung batas na yun. 1991 pa po. Sinasabi na kailangan ng kababaihan would participate in decision making sa pag-identify kung anong program at services ang kailangan nila. You know, dito pa nakalagay, we should allocate, we should attribute a portion of our budget for gender and development. At the minimum requirement is at least 5%, di ba, of the allocated budget. Nandiyan na yan, nakalagay na po yan talaga. That's 1991 strong legal mandate natin. Next, we have the 1995 PPGD, or the Philippine Plan for Gender Responsive Development. 1995 to 2025 po ito. So kasama po tayo no, sa planong ito. Bakit ito mahalaga? Matagal nang na-envision, 1995, na dapat Philippines should have a society that promotes gender equality and women empowerment. Sabi natin kanina, we want to understand ba't mahalaga ang ang mga concepts na ito. Nakalagay na siya noon pa man na mahalaga ang pagkakapantay-pantay ng lahat sa kanilang opportunity na nakukuha at sa mga services and programs na pwedeng ma-avail ng lahat. Babae ka man o lalaki, members of the LGBTQIA spectrum or community, as shown sa advocacy videos kanina, hindi ba? IPs man yan, differently abled, nakalagay na yan din. And what else? 2001, we have the Framework Plan for Women, 2001 to 2004. So a slice of the PPGD, nagkaroon tayo ng maliwanag din na lens, no, na perspective. Hindi pwedeng mabuo ang gender equality kung walang women's empowerment talaga. May inclination, may pagkiling talaga sa opportunities para sa kababaihan, sa kanilang rights because, marami na tayong mga studies, marami na tayong statistics, estado ni Juana, lahat ng statistics na yan, nagpapakita, may gap pa din nahuhuli pa rin kami ng mga Juana. Ito man ay sa education, sa employment man yan, sa health, lalo na ngayong pandemic, especially sa human rights, issues of violence against women and their children. So, hindi talaga mabubuo yung gender equality because almost 50-50 tayo sa population. Kapag naiwanan si Juana, then hindi sustain, di ba? Hindi maging sustainable ang mga development programs or projects natin. So these are very important contexts that again, yes, you don't need to memorize naman because you'll have a copy of the Hagadaga, di ba? You can download it sa PCW website. But it's very important that you understand hanggang sa puso pa nga yung importance nito kung bakit tayo may ganitong checklist. Yan. All right, so okay, I'm now checking our chat box. Kindly double check there are issues daw sa audio. To our co-host, kindly confirm if my audio is okay. Other participants are, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
very
you.
audible.
All right, salamat. Gising ang mga participants, nag-reply sila. Thank you. So for others, kindly double check your audio settings, please. I'm also checking your chat messages para dyan. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yan, gising sila. Let's now go to the objectives naman. Part pa to ng background, Ano ang objective? General and specific objectives of the Hagadaga checklist natin and part to ng inyong pretest din, di ba? General objective, to promote the twin goals of GEWE, gender equality and women's empowerment. Dati pa to. Pinag-uusapan natin, matagal na itong nakalagay sa mga GAD-related policies and mandates, even international. Pinag-uusapan natin, UN CEDAW, yung Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the Beijing Platform for Action. Matagal na itong nakalagay that Philippines should contribute to this, gender equality and women's empowerment. So very important, na maintindihan natin kung bakit ito yun eh. This is the standard, this is the tool that we're going to use so that your agency, your office, or organization can contribute to this. Para malinaw na malinaw ang inyong gender and development program. Yan. So very, we appreciate na meron na tayong readily available tools na laging na-enhance pa nga. This is the 3rd edition na po ng Hagadaga tool natin. What else? Specific objectives ng ating Hagadaga tool. Well, it aims to provide NEDA, the ODA donors, yung foreign funding agencies, the Philippine government agencies, and development practitioners with a common set of analytical concepts and tools for integrating gender concerns into their development programs and projects. So ito na, we have already the common set of analytical concepts and tools. Gagamitin na lang din po talaga natin. And very important specific objective also is to help achieve gender equality in and empower women through projects and programs. Nais natin itong i-emphasize talaga, right? The Hagadaga tool, this can help you really do the right gender mainstreaming through your projects and programs. We are talking about your major programs, the flagship programs. Diba, ang mainstream na iyong ahensya, na iyong sektor, na iyong opisina talaga. So through those big budgeted, sa totoo lang, na mga programs and projects, and to make sure na na-mainstream mo nga ang gender and development, we use this tool, to do the right and the effective gender mainstreaming. Okay? So these are the general and specific objectives. So what are the features of this Hagadaga checklist? Yan. Part 1, core set of GAD requirements, which is part of our next topic. Part 2, GAD guidelines for development in general. So dapat maintindihan natin, ano yun ng mga GAD guidelines, para ma-assist tayo sa design, sa program or design phase din. And part 3, GAD checklists for the management, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation of development projects. Yan. So for my part, parts 1 and 2 ang ating pag-uusapan. And then part 3 naman later is another resource person who will share important knowledge about this. Okay. Now, also, ang important na feature din niya sa ating Hagadaga tool is that we have the generic and sector-specific checklist. And I think naging part din siya ng inyong pre-test kanina. Alright, so very simple lang naman po ito. Ang salitang generic, parang anong naisip nyo? Bukod sa generic, general, hindi ba? Hindi siya specific. So, if your program or project is not belonging to any sector, na ating pag-uusapan mamaya, yung specific sectors, then we highly recommend that you use generic checklist. Actually, for TESDA, even though may education sector specific na, but textbook kami, technical vocational, di ba? So with that, we opt to use the generic para litaw na litaw lang ang gusto namin ilabas pagdating din naman sa TVET sector. So we are also using the generic checklist. Again, if your program or project is not belonging to any sector, please use the generic checklist. Yan. So box 7A yan na ating pag-uusapan mamaya. Then we also have sector-specific checklist. Yan. So right now, our sector-specific checklist is composed of 20 checklists designed to measure the gender responsiveness of the program or project of a given sector. We are using the 3rd edition na. So dati nagsimula lang siya sa 8, right? And ngayon, we have the 20 checklist, sector-specific checklists. So very exciting na makita mamaya. Andito ba ang iyong ahensya, ang iyong organization? Yan, para dyan. At kung nandito, then we highly recommend that you use the sector-specific checklist po. Alright? Okay, so with that, I'm just checking the chat kung wala namang problema or issue. Yan, okay. Thank you, thank you. All right, so let's go to sector-specific checklist. So particular siya, no? Specific siya sa mga sektor po na ito. Yan. Bakit po ito mahalaga? Well, very important na meron tayong sector-specific kasi, specific din ang concerns nito eh. Lalo na if you will dig deeper sa concerns and needs ng babae at kalalakihan sa sektor na to. At sa iba pang pinag-uusapang marginalized and vulnerable sectors, very important na mas malinaw ang pagtingin at ang perspective sa bawat sektor na to. Mabigyan lang po tayo ng example. And we hope na maging excited kayo to check the guidelines and to check kung kayo ay kasama dito sa sector po na ito. For example, agricultural and rural development. Yan. So, meron bang gender issue sa agricultural and agrarian reform? Halimbawa sa mga magsasaka. Do we have data? Ilan ang kababaihan, kalalakihan na magsasaka? At kung ilan nga ba ang participation ng kababaihan or membership dito sa farmers organization na to? Magandang tanong din po yan. What else? Do we have a number, ratio or proportion, ilan ang babae at lalaki availing and adopting new technologies? Halimbawa sa pagsasaka. These are some of the questions being raised in our sector-specific checklist for the agricultural and agrarian reform. Ilan lang po yan. But definitely, if you will use the checklist, mas makikita niyo talaga at makakatulong for you to do gender analysis. Yan. Na pag natingnan natin yung situation ng kababaihan at kalalakihan at iba pang sektor para dyan sa sector po na yan. How about, same with the natural resource management, right? So merong mga gender analysis questions that can help you talagang malaman anong available mong data. Kung wala, then baka may bagunan tayong secondary, related na information para, to make sure that we are analyzing talaga ang situation ng ating target beneficiaries for that. Infrastructure, yan. So, sa iba napapaisip, hindi nga, meron ba talagang gender issue or gap sa pagitan ng services or programs na ito sa babae at sa lalaki at sa iba pang sektor sa infrastructure? Diba? Sa iyong tinayong facility or for example, ilan ang nakaka-access dyan? Ilang babae, ilang lalaki kaya? Ano ang impact ng paggamit nila na yan? May barrier ba sa iyong itinayong facility na yan? Especially ang access kung malayo. For example, iba ang kultura sa IPs. Can they access yung pinatuyo mong facility or the services that you're offering through that facility? Lalo na sa may kapansanan din, hindi ba? So, some of the questions, especially kapag may pinapatayo kang infrastructure or building or facility, baka naman na-displace ang mga nakatira dyan. So, kumusta ang resettlement, issues nitong proyekto na to? Na-consult mo ba sila? Yung pwedeng tamaan nito? Babae, kalalakihan, at iba pa. These questions are being raised in sector-specific checklist, particularly for infrastructure. Ayan, okay. Yan, thank you. Si Ms. Vilma Talamayan, I saw na talagang nag-agree, thank you. Again, for others who are mentioning na may problema tayo sa audio, our host and co-host naman confirm that clear naman daw so far. We hope that you will get stronger internet connection, please. So kindly check na lang po and choose a good location. And para dyan. Thank you for confirming that I'm loud and clear. Thank you sa ating participants. All right, what else? Private sector development. Yan, private sector. Pati ba naman ang private sector? Yes. Ano ang focus natin? Enterprises ba to? What else? Loans, borrowers, profiles. Ilan ba ang nakikinabang sa ganitong mga services or programs natin? Iniiwasan nating maging pangkalahatan na lang. Parang open ito sa lahat. We want to make sure sino nga bang higit na nangailangan, sino hindi natin nare-reach. Right? For example, sa private sector development. Yan. What else? Education. Yan. And syempre malapit yan sa aming puso sa TESDA. And if we have DepEd and SHED here, effectively, ginagamit din nila itong ating Hagadaga checklist. Pero totoong-totoo ito. Even though may K-12 program ka na, you have the universal access to quality tertiary education, meaning, free tuition ka na, hindi ba sa SUCs, sa TVET accredited schools. But still, pag nakita mo, alright, so okay naman sa enrollment, ang babae at lalaki, pero nasan sila? Nasan silang kurso? Nasaan silang track? Paano yung non-traditional? Yung sinasabi nilang male-dominated, di ba? Like the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math. Sa amin naman, male-dominated sectors, usually, sinasabi nila, construction sector, welding, electronics. So, kumusta? Kapag may gap pa rin doon, ano ang ating advocacy initiatives, pag-disseminate ng info for that? So, those questions are being raised in sector-specific checklist. Yan. And of course, health. Yun, very important din ngayon, especially. And as mentioned kanina, the World Health Organization is telling us na dapat integrated mo ang gender and development. Kasi may issue pa rin po tayo eh. That's why it's very important sa gender equality and women's empowerment. We're not only talking about, pag sinabi mong health, ang mortality rate, morbidity rate, ang maternal mortality rate ay patuloy na tumataas sa atin. Kababaihan ang tinatamaan nito Dumarami ang bilang ng mga nanay na namamatay shortly after delivery, for example. Is it because of malnutrition? Is it because of violence? Is it because of access? Hindi makapunta? Lalo na't pandemic. And so these are questions raised. Gender analysis questions ito na meron na tayo if health sector po kayo. Yan. As mentioned kanina, housing and settlement, at sa iba pang nakikita niyo pong sector-specific checklist na yan. For women in areas of armed conflict, definitely. Meron ba silang part sa participation, sa decision-making, justice as well, information and communication technologies. Lalo na ngayon, maraming umano sa virtuals, work from home, sa internet, microfinance-related programs, labor and employment. Tinamaan talaga tayo niyan with the COVID-19 pandemic, di ba? I mean, kahit i-trace mo pa ang bawat taon ng bawat administration, nandiyan pa rin ang gender gap at nahuhuli pa rin si Juana kesa kay Juan pagdating sa labor force participation rate. Kasi may gender issues din yan sa kanya, lalo na't nanay ka, lalo na't may anak ka, for example, at other issues. At ang mas tinatamaan nito ngayong pandemic are still the Juanas. Na dati pa ring issue. What else? Child labor-related programs, migration-related projects and programs, tourism as well, energy-related. Yan. Nakabuo sila ng sarili nilang sector-specific GAD checklist. Disaster risk reduction and management-related programs and projects, even development planning, funding facilities, yan. Medyo mag-give emphasis po tayo niyan in a while, kasi very significant din ang funding facilities design checklist natin. And we have the fisheries and coastal resource management and conservation programs. Ang dami na po, di ba? It's continuously improving. So we hope that kayo din po mag-accelerate ng inyong gender and development mainstreaming. So kung andito kayo sa sector na to, kung inyong program at project directly focus dito sa sectors na to, then please visit the GAD checklist for these sectors. Kung hindi, we have the generic sector nating checklist. All right. So I hope mas nagiging interesting. So as mentioned kanina, I want to add na tatlo kasi ang ating design checklist, di ba? We have the generic, the sector specific, yung 20 kanina, and magbigay tayo ng emphasis sa box F1, funding facilities design checklist. Yan. Kasi sa totoo lang, cross-cutting to, di ba? In any sector, if kayo ay magpopondo into development ng isang facility, for example, meron na tayong readily available checklist, GAD checklist for that. At nakalagay sa guidelines, all facilities should aim to promote gender sensitivity or responsiveness among their funded projects. As you can see in the picture. Kapag ba pinatuyo mo yung facility na yan, sa construction, open ka ba for employment sa babae at lalaki? Safe ba ang magiging environment nila kung may babae kang nais magtrabaho sa habang kino-construct ito, for example? Yamang male-dominated din ito, right? Sinong gagamit ng facility mo na yon? Is it, does it address ang needs ng inyong beneficiaries, women and men and the marginalized? So this facilities design checklist, box F1, can help us. So, well, quickly, let me share the principles of the Hagadaga. Achieving equality between women and men may involve introduction of specific measures designed to eliminate prevailing gender inequalities. Makikita mo kasi kung saan ang gap for inequalities. Gender equality means promoting the equal participation of women. Yan, in all spheres. Participation in development is crucial the empowerment of women and men. Kailangan, diba? May kalayaan kang mag-participate dyan. Equality between women and men is a key women's human right. Yan. Para ito sa lahat, itong gender equality na fundamental human right natin. So, well, who are the users of the Hagadaga tool? Program and project developers, implementers, monitoring and evaluation team. This can serve as your guide. The members of the GAD focal point system, kung kayo ay assigned or designated GAD focal persons, definitely you need to be familiar with the tool and you need to use it for the GAD planning and budgeting. Yan. So first part, what is the main idea? One, Hagadaga should be used primarily to improve the gender responsiveness of programs and projects. And by using this tool, then we are sure that the GEWE concerns, gender equality and women's empowerment concerns, are integrated sa lahat ng stages. And we will start with the design ng ating program and project. Okay? So now, let's go to the core GAD elements. Yan. So before I proceed, yan, I have about 43 minutes remaining, pero let's do poll survey. So kindly assist me po ang PCW Tech team. Question number 2. Let's launch our poll survey number 2. So in our GAD guidelines, this is a question. In GAD guidelines for identification and design of development programs, ilan ang core GAD elements nito that we need to consider, we need to analyze to ensure gender responsiveness of a project or program? Isang sagot lang po. Is it 7? Is it 10? Is it 12? Is it 5 elements or 20 elements? Wala pong maling sagot. Just, share and submit your answers. Tapos sasagutin po natin yan later. Alright? Okay. Sige po, tingnan natin kung ilan na makakasagot. At ito po pala ay pabilisan. Sa dami niyo po, 688 participants. Alright, so just kindly submit your answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close our poll survey. Thank you. Thank you so much. 425 participants have answered. Thank you so much po. Ang bilis niyo po ah. All right. So sa kanila, 37% ang nagsabi na 10 elements, followed by 20 elements at 28%. Sumunod naman 15% sa 7 elements, 11% sa 12 elements, and lastly 9% sa 5 elements. Yan. Thank you. Thank you for that poll survey. Thank you sa ating tech team. Sagutin na po natin ito sa ating Hagadaga Guidelines, Part 1, page 18. Ito po yung sagot natin. The GAD Guidelines for the Identification and Design ng ating development projects require, ito ha, requirement, 10 core GAD elements of a gender-responsive program or project. 10 po ito na kailangan nating maging familiar. Okay? So bear with me as we go through this. First element is participation of women and men in problem identification. At makikita nyo po, total of 20 points yan, 2 points each kasi. So mahalaga na sa pag-identify ng problema sa ground, sa iyong beneficiary, nag-participate sila. Diba? Ang beneficiary groups mo rin, women and men. Hindi lang yung mga nasa decision-making part, kundi ang iyong beneficiary group din. What else? Generation and use of sexist-aggregated data in the analysis of the problem. So, kung nag-consult ka, dapat documented. Diba? Lilitaw yan. Ilan ang babae, ilan ang lalaki na nag-participate sa ganong consultation mo. At ito ba'y na-analyze? Anong bosses nila, anong concerns nila ang nailagay mo naman sa pinakang disenyo ng iyong project or program. Number 3, gender analysis to identify gender issues that the proposed project must address. So very important, you have the data. Connected kasi itong 1, 2, 3 eh. You have the data, right? Ilan ang babae at lalaki, ano ang concerns nila. Kapag hindi available ang ganong data mo, can you get secondary related, GAD-related information, research, studies, para makita mo, meron bang gaps, meron bang inequalities, then it should be a form of your project document then. GAD in goals, objectives, outcomes, or outputs. So very important, ma-articulate mo siya. Kung gusto mo mag-contribute for gender equality and women's empowerment, then it should be explicitly, written there. Ano ang iyong GAD goal? Is it development for all? Would you like to reach the vulnerable or marginalized sector para dyan, di ba? So, mahalagang nakalagay din po siya dyan. Fifth core GAD element, activities match identified gender issues. You have the issues na, inequalities, the gaps. Anong activity mo? Hindi pwedeng malayo ang gagawin mong activity sa issues na na-raise, di ba? Sa tamang paggawa ng gender analysis. What else? Sixth core GAD element, gender analysis of design project. This is very important. Akala kasi nila tapos na eh. Nagdisenyo ka na ng project proposal mo, ng policy document mo, ng guidelines mo, right? Design project na siya eh. Go back to those gender analysis questions to make sure na talagang, very clear na nais mo mag-contribute for gender equality and women empowerment. I saw heart emoji dyan. Maraming salamat. What else? Our seventh core GAD element, gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation system that would capture GAD results. So hanggang monitoring and evaluation system, kailangan, ma-capture mo siya, yung GAD results na gusto natin. Requirement of sex disaggregated database. So are you requiring to get SDD, number of babae at lalaki na beneficiaries? Sino sila? ITs ba sila? Differently abled persons ba sila? Displaced workers ba sila dahil sa COVID-19 pandemic, etc.? Do you require that, to measure? Maganda yan. Ninth core GAD element, commitment of resources to address the gender issues. Very important to. Hindi mo pwedeng ma-pursue isang program or project kung wala kang resources. It can be human resources, like your GAD focal point system, your GAD focal persons, and the budget. Kaya siya connected for the GAD plan and budget then. And lastly, congruence of project GAD agenda with that of agency. So connected dapat, di ba? Ang paggamit mo nitong tool, connected dapat para sa iyong GAD plan and budget, if you have the GAD logic framework or GAD agenda or sa direction being recommended by the Commission on Women, kailangan connected tayo. Diba? So these are very important core GAD elements. But don't worry, we will go ahead and discuss more about these very important core GAD elements. Yan. So now, before I start there, yes, can I just go back doon sa outline? Yeah. Very important na hindi lang nalaman natin ang core GAD elements, but paano natin may ensure na meron tayong ganito sa ating program or project? We need to do gender analysis. And the HGDG, the HGDG Guidelines, ay punong-puno na ng gender analysis questions na kailangan yung masagot. Diba? Kung sino man ang involved dito sa development program and project niyo po. For example, pagdating sa number 1, participation ng babae at lalaki in problem identification, ito yung mga tanong niya. Did you consult women and men? Ito ba ay sa central agency, subnational or community levels? Do you have records of such consultation? Kasi very important to. Kailangan mo ng means of verification, sa totoo lang. So we will also discuss that later. Sa sex disaggregated data in the analysis of the problem, di ba? Para dyan, nagkaroon ba ng ganong involvement? Nag-require ka ba ng utilization of the sex disaggregated data or gender-related information? Yung mga gender issues ba na ito nais i-address na iyong programa or nanatili lang siyang gender issue? Your activities or program or project should address to those issues para talagang development, di ba? Ang gusto nating ibigay sa ating target beneficiaries. Yan. What else? Gender analysis to identify gender issues. Yan. So ito na yung mga set of gender analysis questions. Kasi iba-iba po ang members of the society. Tingnan niyo po yung mga tanong. What are the practical gender needs ng babae at lalaki? Enough na bang sabihin na, yes, for health natin to help kids, yun yung kailangan nila. Education, ito yung kailangan nila. Trabaho, ito yung kailangan nila. But still, merong intersectionality na tinatawag po eh. Hindi mo pwedeng masabi na ang babaeng single ay same ang situation sa babaeng may asawa o may anak. Iba rin ang sitwasyon ng lalaking may trabaho sa wala, lalo na kung tatay siya. Iba ang sitwasyon ng isang differently abled person sa ganitong region, sa region 2, sa region 7. Kahit na differently abled person sila. May trabaho ba sila? May access ba sila? Iba-iba yan eh. Na merong strategic gender needs ang bawat isa sa atin that needs to be analyzed. Yan. So what else? Other gender analysis questions. So that means hindi tayo mawawala when we effectively use this tool. GAD in goals, objectives, outcomes, or outputs. So doon tinatanong, kita ba sa purposes, kita ba sa objectives, sa goals na gusto mong ma-attain ang gender equality and women empowerment? What else? Activities match, identify gender issues. Yes, yun yung na-mention natin kanina. Supporting dapat ang activities or interventions mo. Hindi pwedeng malayo para doon. Yan. To ensure na walang negative impact ito sa kanilang status and welfare. Gender analysis of designed project. Ito yung sinasabi natin na you go back. Kahit nagawa na yung policy or guidelines na yan, you go back again. But to make sure that we are contributing to gender equality and women's empowerment. And this is very important din talaga. Mamaya, bibigyan natin ng sample case. All right? What else? We are now sa 7th gender analysis questions na po na makikita nyo sa ating Hagadaga checklist. Gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation system that would capture GAD results. This is very important. Ang inyong bang project or program ay merong realistic time-bound, both quantitative and qualitative targets. Mahalaga po ito. Kasi karamihan sa atin, enough na ang, yes, give me the data. Ilan ang total mong beneficiaries? Sige, ilan ang babae at lalaki? You know, kung minsan, enough na yung ganyan. Quantitative po yan, you know, answering the question, what? Sino nag-benefit? Who, di ba? Ilan sila? Pero ang qualitative ay talagang well-grounded. You know, kung minsan narrative pa nga to eh. Pwedeng testimonial nila, pwedeng interviews, now that we're doing virtual, pwedeng observation, kung paano talaga, you know, to make sure na meron tayong ganitong gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation ng ating GAD goals and objectives. Yan. 8th, core GAD element, requirement of sexist aggregated database. Ayan. So again, do you require gender equality and women's empowerment indicators hanggang sa output and outcome levels? Kasi kung wala, then baka maputol natin yung tamang proseso, no? For gender mainstreaming. So mahalagang hanggang dun, meron po tayo. 9th, core GAD element, commitment of resources to address the gender issues. As mentioned, financial and human resources ito. And we're very glad na marami dito ang members of the GFPS as well. So ang talagang fully na pag-function nito is very, you know, evident na talagang committed ang iyong agency or organization for this. So again, very important na kayo po ay makagamit nito pong tool na ito din. And lastly, congruence of project GAD agenda with that of agency. So ito rin po yung ating babalikan when we go to the questions mamaya eh. Pero very important po ito is that yung program or project mo, lalo na major program or project yan, ito ba ay congruent, connected din sa priorities din, you know, within your mandate yan eh. Kung anong scope ng iyong, anong mandato ng iyong agency, ng iyong opisina, di ba? Doon ka lang din naman, and you integrate gender and development elements for that. So, ito ba ay makakapag-empower nga sa mga kababaihan? Will it build your commitment towards gender and development and with the PCW as well as our oversight agency? Meron ka bang exit plan or sustainability? Or anong evidence mo na ito ay magpapatuloy na hindi lang ngayong taon mabibigay mo or ma-reach mo ang iyong target beneficiaries? And will the project build on the initiatives of other organizations? Lalo na ngayon, di ba, convergence na tayo. Yung iyong program or project, pwedeng ka-partner mo sa LGU, pwedeng industry or the private sector. So very important na sila din will get involved sa iyong gender and development mainstreaming na programa. All right. So what is our main idea? The GAD elements, the 10 core GAD elements in the Hagadaga presents the required. Pag sinabi mong required, necessary to, essential to, right? Kailangan to integrate GAD in the development process, lalo na sa design phase. And bakit beyond attribution lang po ito? Kasi if you will effectively use the GAD checklist, the doable and concrete steps, kasi guided na tayo with the gender analysis questions, anong MOVs ang nire-require niya at each stage, sa design, sa implementation, sa monitoring and evaluation, then hindi lang ito basta papel na GAD plan and budget, right? Hindi lang ito basta allocation ng inyong budget for gender and development. We are saying na we are contributing to addressing gender equality gaps, and our programs and projects have positive impacts sa buhay ng mga target beneficiaries. Okay? So that's why very inspiring yung ating topic about beyond attribution. Yeah. So I have about 30 minutes of my time. So let me now go ahead with application through virtual exercise naman po tayo. So before I move on, gusto kong ma-inspire pa kayo lalo. Allow me to share quickly a 4-minute featured video. Ito po ay real-life experiences sa mga GAD practitioners. I requested 2 members of the GAD Resource Pool. Ang isa galing Region 8. After ng Typhoon Yolanda na nahit sa Region 8, paano nakatulong ang Hagadaga design checklist sa kanya? Yung isa naman po is a GAD consultant providing technical assistance to requesting clients. Ano ang pinaka nagugustuhan niya sa Hagadaga checklist natin? So let's watch this featured video.
That time after Yolanda, representing not only children but also women and elderly, I insisted the reactivation of our Regional Gender Development Committee or our GADC, because we see that there are urging concerns on child abuse, human trafficking, as well as how can the recovery and rehabilitation will have the gender lens in terms of how it will be implemented, who will be the beneficiaries, and what will be the impact on women, on men, on children, on differently abled, and up to a certain extent, our indigenous people. So it was participated by different agencies of the government, LGU, and also from the private sector. And it was very refreshing on us na meron na palang tool that can measure how do we qualify whether or not these set of projects, particularly big ticket projects, talk about billions of infrastructure and other projects, that we can assess whether or not it has an impact.
Yung Hagadaga kasi nung nasa PCW, kasama din ako doon sa proseso ng initial na pagda-draft. Iba kasi yung pag ikaw yung kasama doon sa pagda-draft, iba pa rin yung ikaw na mismo yung magpe-provide ng TA doon sa mga agents. Pag unang nag-introduce ka ng mga bago, may mga counting resistance yung mga agencies in particular, hindi pa sila masyadong aware doon sa tools. Kasi sa Hagadaga, talagang yung mga questions in particular na sobrang na-appreciate ko yun talaga. Kasi pag nagtanong ka, yun yung mga data na kailangan mo. At makikita mo din doon na pagtapos na siya, saan ba mahina, saan ba malakas, saan ba yung pwede yung isusustain mo. Yung na-appreciate ko doon yung mga questions. Kasi talagang makikita mo doon na ano ba yung kulang. At basically, sa mga agencies, ang nagkukulang palagi sila yung data. Pag gano'n na, makikita na nila na, yun yung basic na, at this point in time, ganito para lang ang sitwasyon.
We constantly improve in terms of coming up with different sectoral checklists, which is responsive, because sometimes the generic checklist cannot capture some of the gender lens or components or issues that may arise with a specific sector. But what I like about it is that even if your sector doesn't have a checklist of its own, you have the generic checklist that you can use. So everything is covered. Like when you talk about infra or livelihood or any sector at that matter, you can use the checklist. For first-time users, you have to be open-minded in terms of learning new things. It will motivate you to go through the process, because it is when we go through the process, not taking shortcuts, that we fully understand why we continue to advocate gender development and why we continue to pursue gender equality in our country. It remains an important development issue, and it really has an impact in the lives of men and women and LGBT in our society.
As you go along, habang ginagawa mo siya, ginagamit mo siya, nagiging komportable na. At I highly recommend to use this. Required kasi siya, di ba, ng mga, like, yung mga previous na project. Required ng NEDA yan eh. So, kailangan mo siyang tingnan talaga na, as in, 1, 2, 3, yung mga questions na yun, makikita. At requirement siya. So, makikita mo yung mga gaps. So, I highly recommend really this. Sa simula talaga medyo mahirap, pero habang ginagamit mo siya, ma-appreciate mo siya na, okay, talagang is really a good tool.
All right, so thank you everyone for watching that featured video. I hope na nakita niyo po na sila ay masaya ng mga GAD consultants natin, members of the GAD Resource Pool, at kung paano nila na-appreciate ang paggamit po ng Hagadaga checklist natin. Yan. So, right now, yan, let's go back to the third part. Nais nating ma-apply ito. I can see here in my timer about 24 minutes ang remaining sa atin. So let's do a virtual exercise para dito. Pero very important, bago mo simulan, tandaan natin na hindi lang ikaw mag-isa ang gagamit ng Hagadaga checklist. You know, let's go back. Ang Hagadaga users natin, di ba, the GAD focal point system, ikaw man ay planner ka man o di kaya implementer ka man, di ba, developers man, mahalaga na kasama rin kayo. You need to have your project proposal or policy document. Also, the Hagadaga design checklist, the box 7A, for example, the generic checklist which you'll be using, at saka yung guide in accomplishing the checklist. Dapat meron ka na mga to. Kapag kumpleto ka na, then we're all set para sa ating virtual exercise. So very simple lang siya. Ito yung sample screenshot ng generic checklist natin. So nakikita niyo po dyan yung una, participation of women and men in project identification. Pwede siyang sagutin ng no. Ang tanong niya kasi, nagawa ba to? Pwedeng no, pwedeng partly yes, pwedeng yes. At meron siyang sub-elements. Yan, dito sa number 1.1, 1.2 for example. Kung ang sagot ng isa ay partly yes, ang score niya, as you can see there, is 0.33. Yan. At meron po dito sa result or comment na pwedeng magamit. Yan. Pwede nating ilagay ang ating means of verification for that. Yan. So, ililipat lang po natin ang score nito, and each element ay may assigned rin ito, score na dapat din nating tingnan. So, ganyan lang po ang paggamit natin hanggang sa mailagay natin yung pinakang subtotal score sa taas, which is 1.33. So, madali lang siyang gamitin yung ating generic box 7A checklist. So, let's do a sample case. And I'm happy to share one of TESDA's GAD attributed programs, major programs po ito, validated by the Philippine Commission on Women last year, 2020. Dahil ang mainstream ng TVET, ng TESDA, are these scholarship programs. Dito litaw-nilitaw ang social equity, ang equality na gusto namin ipakita. Ito po yun. So this is our TESDA circular, our policy, our guidelines. May hawak kaming generic box 7A checklist. Kami yung mga users, the GAD focal point system, the GAD focal persons, and we have the guide. Diba? Para tama yung aming pag-accomplish ng checklist na to. So let's give you, allow me to give you some examples. Nung tinanong kami na involved ba ang babae at kalalakihan sa beneficiary groups in the problem identification, we answered, as you can see there, partly yes. Yan. That's 0.5. Yan. Kasi nagkaroon ng consultation from the ground. We have the National Directorate, we have the National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan, for example, yan. Pero definitely, kailangan siyang mailagay sa mismong policy document. So kapag hindi siya explicitly written, then maaring mailagay lang namin as partly yes yan. Lalo na kung kailangan pa natin ng dagdag na means of verification or documentation for that. Yan. So meron kami dyang score na 1.5. sa involvement of women and men. Kailangan na ilagay mo siya sa iyong rationale, sa iyong background, sa iyong objective, yung nangyaring ganong consultation sa kanila of the beneficiary groups. What else? Sa tanong na, did we do the collection of sex aggregated data and gender-related information? Isang malaking yes po yan sa amin, full yes. And the score is 2. Bakit? Sabi namin dyan, please refer to our policy document. May nakalagay po dyan that we're able to use the sex disaggregated data We have the gender profile of the TVET sector. Meron po kaming research na ginawa study with our dear consultant, si Ma'am Jean Ilio, at consultant din for the Hagadaga design checklist. So these are very important para litaw na litaw sa amin kung sino ang target beneficiaries namin for the scholarship programs. As you can see in the example, these are the women na marginalized po. Indigenous peoples, rebel returnees, differently abled persons, senior citizens. Litaw na litaw yan sa aming policy document. What else? Sa conduct of gender analysis and identification of gender issues. Yan. Nilagay namin, full yes kami dyan. Sub-score is 2 points. Bakit? Sabi namin, please refer to the policy document. Sabi namin sa aming PCW reviewer. Sa mga paragraph na ito, sa rational part, nagkaroon po ng analysis dyan sa gender needs ng aming target beneficiaries, at ito ay na-consider sa scholarship programs and trainings na aming pong ibibigay. Nakita namin may gaps, may issues, then we are addressing them by saying this is technical vocational education and training for all, and we would like to contribute to social, equality, social equity as well. Yan. Nakita rin dito, may constraints ba, may opportunities? Yes. These were also considered. Sabi namin, dito po, under the programs covered, the qualifications, silagay namin anong section ng policy document, makikita siya. Yung ganitong bagay. And very important din yan sa inyong PCW reviewer para madaling ma-review, madaling ma-aprobahan ang inyong Hagadaga accomplished checklist. For the question about gender equality goals, outcomes, and outputs, nag-full yes din po kami niyan last year. Bakit? Nilagay namin under rational pa lang, punong-puno na yung part ng rational ng aming policy document. Napakalinaw. Gusto natin, we have this slogan, test na abot lahat. Equality for all, lalo na sa pagbibigay ng scholarship programs. So talagang gender equality goal yan. Sa outcomes, litaw na litaw daw, we want to uplift the lives of these beneficiaries, including, isa pa namin, women and those marginalized and vulnerable sectors as well. So very important na explicitly written, na articulate siya sa ating policy document. Sa fifth GAD element, matching of strategies with gender issues, definitely. Yes. However, dito kami nag-partly yes last year po. So kailangan ma-improve namin ito. Definitely for this year. Yan. Kasi nga, very important na, ito yung aming strategies, scholarship programs na ibibigay sa kanila para po sa ating target beneficiaries. However, kailangan pang i-improve na ma-connect siya again sa gender issues. Hindi pwedeng, nakalagay na kasi yan dyan kaya automatic na yan, ito na yon na aming interventions. Very important, 1, 2 statements, a paragraph na sinasabi mong connected to, well-match itong interventions mo and activities mo for those gender issues. Yan. So nakapartly kami dyan. Nakapartly yes kami dyan. Kaya, as you can see sa fifth element, 2 ang full yes, 2 points. Nag 1 point lang po kami dyan. What else? Sa part naman ng gender analysis of likely impacts of the project, gustong-gusto ko po itong part na to. Yes. Tuwang-tuwa ako na, okay, so ito palang ibig sabihin ng gender analysis question na to. We are trying to analyze anong impact nito. We know na may opportunities, we know na may ibibigay tayong needs ng ating target beneficiaries. Pero ang tinatanong dyan, direct beneficiaries mo ba ang women and girls? Sabi namin yes, full yes, 0.67. Sabi dyan, na-consider mo ba ang long-term impact sa women's socio-economic status? Sabi ulit namin yes. Kasi hindi lang kami hanggang enrolled, hanggang graduates. Gusto namin certified yan. May national certificate yan, na skilled yan. And aside from that, gusto namin makita employment. Saan nila nagamit ang training programs po niyan. And we have offices na nagmamonitor po dyan. Pero gusto ko itong 6.3 question. Nakita ba ng programa mo that it can avoid or minimize the negative impacts? At natutuwa kaming mag-full yes po dyan. Paano? Kasi when we offer scholarship programs, halimbawa sa community noon, before the pandemic, baka may negative impact ito sa kababaihan. Kailangan ba niyang magsara ng kanyang negosyo, ng tindahan? Kailangan ba niyang humanap na magbabantay sa kanyang mga anak, for example? Multiple, marami pa siyang burden pag uwi sa bahay kasi meron siyang reproductive role din as mother, for example, aside from nag-aaral siya sa technical vocational. So, lahat ng ito na-consider. Kaya ang aming scholarship program can give you, allowance, daily allowance to cover that, starter toolkits para pagkatapos mo, you can start your negosyo. entrepreneurship training as well, di ba? Helping them to become more empowered. Nakita namin, so we can minimize those negative impacts. At natutuwa kami na ito yung laman ng aming scholarship programs. What else? 7 to 8, yan. Monitoring targets and indicators. So hindi ka lang hanggang sa start, di ba? Hanggang sa M&E. Do you require gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation? Yan. So we have that database. And we also go back to gender analysis. Pag may hawak na kaming policy document. Number 9, resources. Yes, nag-full yes kami. Nakalagay siya sa GAD plan and budget, which is also endorsed, and we have the GAD focal point system. How about the number 10, relationship with the agency's GAD efforts? Yes, lalo na't napapastrengthen ito yung ating connection then with the oversight agency, the PCW, right? At connected ito sa iba pa, the industries, the local government units. So we answered full yes. Yan. About the exit plan, sustained ito kasi karaniwan na nagagaling ito sa batas na dapat nating ma-implement itong mga scholarship programs. Our score was 18.5 and that's a gender responsive program. Yan. At totoong-totoo talaga ito as mentioned by the Director General of TESDA. It directly impacts the lives of the people, women and the marginalized group. Yan. So I have about 13 minutes remaining na lang po. So kindly bear with me. Very quickly, let me share paano natin ito ma-apply ang Hagadaga Design Checklist sa GAD Plan and Budget. Yan. Again, design checklist, generic sector-specific facilities checklist. Gagamitin mo ito sa inyong GAD planning and budgeting. Well, pwede siyang makatulong sa'yo kung saan ka mahina at malakas sa iyong client and organization. Pero primarily, sa GAD attributed portion siya ng iyong GAD plan and budget talaga. Yan. So, mailalagay mo siya. Paano? Yan. Here's the interpretation of GAD scores. Kapag below 4 ang score, that is GAD is invisible. Binabalik ang ganong project document. Hindi mo siya pwedeng maisama. No attribution. Pag 4 to 7.9, promising GAD prospects po yan. Conditional pass. So, pwede mong maisama sa GAD plan and budget, but sa report na, sa GAD accomplishment report, kailangan maipalo mo siya sa gender sensitive. That's 8 to 14.9 score. Passing the GAD test po yan. Gender sensitive na programa yan. 15 to 19.9 score is gender responsive. Commended po yan kasi you respond to the gender needs and issues, diba, of your target beneficiaries. 20 points, napakataas, fully gender responsive po ito. So paano gagawin natin? For example, as you can see in this part, the GPB attribution. Here's a formula. Ilan ang score divided by the 20 total points times 100% times of the program budget. For example, sample computation po tayo dyan. The score is 16, right? Divided by the 20 total points ng Hagadaga Design Checklist times 100%. That's 80%. So if the allocated budget is 2 million, for example, 80% of 2 million is 1,600,000 na pwede mo ma-attribute, ma-allocate for your GAD plan and budget. Yan. So, ganyan po ang proseso niya. But now that we're using online, the gender mainstreaming monitoring system, online na po ito sa encoding, submission, review, and endorsement. Definitely, ang online system would do its own computation. So, hindi na po yan magiging problema sa atin. We just need to answer the checklist. Same questions, same laman. Nailagay lang po ito sa online system ng Philippine Commission on Women. But again, very important na mailagay natin ang means of verification. Yung mga nakalagay sa remarks natin kanina. Kasi kung wala kang MOV, kung wala kang pinakang reference or supporting docs, then hindi ito pwedeng matanggap ng ating PCW reviewer. Yan. So, gusto ko mag-pause dyan for a while with the remaining minutes that I have. Bakit ito mahalaga? Yes, ang Hagadaga Design Checklist is used, syempre, sa pag-attribute ng iyong major program and project sa iyong GAD plan and budget. But let me go back to the meaning of attribution very quick. Pag sinabi mong attribution, di ba, you ascribe your regard a particular program or project as gender and development program din ng iyong agency. Nasa buwan ng wika tayo sa madaling salita, ipinapahiwatig natin, di ba? Itinatalaga natin. For example, na ang scholarship programs ng TESDA, ito ang aming major GAD attributed programs. Bakit? Kasi nag-gender analysis kami. We accomplished the Hagadaga tool, naipasa namin with the means of verification at mababalidate ito ng Philippine Commission on Women. So ganun po siya. That's attribution. Pero hindi lang siya basta allocation of the budget. But again, we want to make sure na talagang we're contributing to gender equality and women's empowerment, directly benefiting positive talagang impact sa lives ng women at sa other vulnerable sector. So, how do we use the Hagadaga design checklist? Pagkatapos mong sagutan, pagkatapos mong mailagay sa iyong GAD plan and budget, we recommend that we pay attention to the answers and the elements. Kung saan ka may no, saan ka may partly yes, then there is a need for us to revise the project or program design. Babalik ulit kayo sa users, sa iyong GFPS, sa strategic office, kung saan gumawa ng ganitong policy, sino nag-i-implement, kailangan yung enhance sa inyong policy document. Para the next year, mas mataas ang mailalagay natin dito using the Hagadaga design. It can be part of the mitigating strategies. And definitely, we'll listen sa voices ng, sa ground, sa field, lalo na kung meron kang regional offices. Mahalaga din na mag-contribute sila talaga dito kung na-attain ba natin o hindi. Ano pa ang dapat nating i-sustain or ano pa ang dapat nating i-enhance. All right, so now we will now discuss about the recommendations and tips. Yan. So as your resource person, allow me to mention that these are some of the practical tips when accomplishing the checklist. 1, be objective. We should avoid assumptions. So assessment natin ay evidence-based. Yan. No means of verification, no score. So very important that we put remarks doon sa portion na yon, and we mention dito tong part ng ating policy document. If not, then ito yung ating supporting documents as our evidence or means of verification. Please ensure brief, clear, and exact answers. Kung hindi ikaw makakasagot, then you consult sa talagang opisina who's handling that major program or project mo, or even sa consultation sa baba, to really answer those gender analysis questions. All elements should be explicitly articulated in the documents. Kasi sayang naman, kung ginagawa naman po talaga, then we put it in our policy document. Kindly involve concerned project staff and the GFPS in answering the checklist. Hindi lang po ikaw as a GAD focal person. It works talaga. Kailangan mo lang ng konting advocacy at ng ilang pang-inspire, pang-motivate, pero please involve your GFPS and those na users of the Hagadaga for your design program or project. Another important tips, always refer to the scoring guide. Meron po tayong scoring guide dyan if you will download a copy of your Hagadaga to verify yung appropriateness ng inyong scores. And lastly, utilize the last column, explaining yung iyong score na nilagay. So, it can guide your PCW reviewer at talagang mag-guide din tayo ng ating reviewers from PCW dun sa tamang score natin in using the Hagadaga checklist. Yan. So far, these are the parts of my presentation that we were able to discuss. And we apologize for the limited time, but I hope that I was able to give you some information about the background and rationale of Hagadaga, bakit ito significant. We're able to understand ano yung 10 core GAD elements and their significance para sa ating lahat, sa lahat ng ating participants ngayon. And through that virtual exercise, by sharing our own case from TESDA through the Scholarship Management Division, we hope na nakita nyo na kung nagawa rin namin at nagagawa ng ibang ahensya, then definitely, diba? Kayang-kaya nyo rin po talaga. First step lang po, gawin na natin yan. And lastly, we were able to see saan natin ma-apply ang Hagadaga design checklist into the GAD plan and budget, especially the GAD attributed programs. So again, hindi lang siya reaching the minimum requirement, and that's the 5%, at least 5% of the allocated budget na yung ahensya for that year is for the gender and development. That's very good kung yun ay nako-comply natin base sa batas, sa Magna Carta of Women. But again, we want to influence the remaining 95%. Actually, for TESDA, kung 2020 ito, ang aming GAD allocation na percentage was 50.47%. Yan. So, natutuwa kami na mainstream yan eh. Yan ang pinakang mandate, pinaka-mainstream ng technical vocational education and training. When you incorporate gender and development, then, hindi mo poproblemahin ng attribution and magiging true para sa'yo ang pag-contribute to gender equality and women empowerment. And lastly, those are some simpler practical recommendations and tips that we hope can be useful po para sa inyo. Yan. So allow me to give you a review of some key concepts. Number one, from the upper left side ng ating visual aid ng slide, Hagadaga should be used primarily to improve the gender responsiveness of programs and projects, major programs and projects, lalo na kung mainstream yan or big budgeted. What else? The Hagadaga is an effective tool in attributing a portion of the program budget to the GAD budget of agencies, as you can see in the score and the computation. And the result is a more gender-responsive planning and budgeting. Third key concept, by using this tool, the gender equality, women empowerment concerns can be integrated in all various stages. Kasi gender equality and women's empowerment can be in the design, in the implementation, in the monitoring and evaluation. But again, bakit ito beyond attribution lang? Well, if you will effectively use the Hagadaga tool, again, our goal is to greatly impact the lives of women and girls and other target beneficiaries na nasa vulnerable and marginalized sectors pa din po. Yan. So with that being said, it has been my privilege and opportunity to be your resource person. I just want to say that gender and development is a cross-cutting theme. Pwede talagang kita ito sa lahat ng sektor. So let's not set gender and development aside. Nais natin ma-integrate ito, ma-incorporate. That's what we call beyond attribution. And we're talking about the effective use of the government's budget, right? Resources. At sa inyo rin po, na inyong mga resources. We want to make sure that we are reaching those na kailangan ng ating services and programs din po by using the Hagadaga design checklist. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that engaging discussion, Jonna. So we now understand that the use of Hagadaga is not just for the sake of development of GAD plan and budget, but more importantly, to ensure that the plans and programs we make are gender responsive. We also appreciate po that you were able to provide us a testimonial video, which I'm pretty sure everyone has appreciated. For the information of everyone po, this is just an extra portion that Jonna prepared. Pero we really appreciate it kasi nakita po natin na this Hagadaga is good to apply po in our programs and plans. So this is not just something that we see and read. This is something that can be applicable. The session also highlighted the need to involve women, men, girls, and boys in the project or program identification and design. So during the discussion, there were several questions raised already. And in the interest of time, meron na po tayong mga nasagot na previous questions. However, we would like to highlight 3 questions for our resource person to respond to. Number 1 question po is, question po for funding agencies na nagpa-fund ng projects for various sectors. Advisable po ba na ang gamitin ay yung sector-specific for each project or better na generic para sa lahat? Para po standardized na yun ang gamit ng lahat ng agency-funded projects.
Thank you for that, Nina. Well, kung ito ay foreign funded, like through the official development assistance talaga, again, minimum requirements, GAD requirements and elements ang nakalagay sa atin. We strongly recommend, kung ito ay specific sa inyong sector, that's why we have the sector-specific checklist na. Bakit? Kasi ano na siya, readily available na. Marami itong pinagdaan ng consultation na po and the experts bago ito magkaroon tayo ng sariling sector-specific checklist. Even, experts, consultants, and the OTAGAD network as well, yung mga foreign funding agencies na consult na rin, na ito yung hihingi nila na minimum GAD requirements talaga. So, yun ang dapat natin gamitin. Now, kung hindi mapalitaw, kagaya ng sa TESDA, we effectively use the the generic checklist. But again, ang foreign-funded agencies or programs na ito, usually meron silang ni-require na gender action plan. So doon kailangan ding nakasunod tayo. Kasi ganun din po ang proseso ng sa TESDA eh. So ito yung minimum requirements natin, ito naman yung kanilang hinihingi. So mahalaga na kumpleto nating mabigay. Again, to make sure our aim, is directly contributing to gender equality, women's empowerment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jonah. We have another question po, no? What if the program or project cuts across sectors? Do we use the generic or the sector-specific checklist?
All right, so you mentioned cross-sector. Cross-sector, okay.
Yes.
Oo, nakakatuwa naman yan.
Cross sectors.
Well, yes, oo. With that, I believe na very important, again, nasa design phase pa lang, no? Sa totoo lang. Kaya natutuwa ako na design phase ang nabigay sa aking presentation because doon pa lang sa disenyo, definitely, kayo na nasa posisyon na nagpaplano, nagde-design, dapat malinaw po anong objective na iyong programa. Dapat clear. Anong theme nito? Diba? Para malitaw kung anong sektor ang iyong directly kinikater. Doon pa lang malinaw at hindi siya malabo talaga. So kapag malinaw yun ang objective, ang inyong targets, ang inyong goals, then I'm sure hindi maging problema kung anong sector ang nais nyong i-cater. And again, ang HGDG kasi is very effective within the mandate or sector ng iyong ahensya. Hindi naman talaga yon. Kasi that's our goal, di ba? To really do the gender mainstreaming sa government agencies, sa mga organizations din. But again, kung hindi litaw na litaw sa sector specific, then you have the generic. Para malaya ka ring mag-add, di ba? Ng para sa'yo, para sa sector na iyong pinipili. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third question is, follow-up rin po ba na nakapag cross-cutting first, the other question is, how does development planning differ with infrastructure? How do we know which checklist to use for the project?
Yes. Oh, I think same siya kanina, no? Natanong natin. Definitely, there should be a discussion mula sa kung sino magde-decide kung anong proyekto ito, anong program ito. Para malinaw kung ito ba ay sa infrastructure related, lalo na kung funding of facilities po talaga ito. Kasi very specific ang ating ang ating design checklist yan. So I think maging malinaw lang again sa objective or theme kung saan papunta, ano ang main objective ng iyong program and project as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jonah. So we hope na naintindihan po natin that although we have the generic and sector-specific checklist, it also depends din kung ano po yung hinahanap ng ating mga agencies based on their programs and plans. But of course, overall, we would like to emphasize that every program that we plan should be gender responsive. And yan po ang pinaka-highlight ng ating discussion made by Jonah Tabu-Tataw. So, although we have a lot of questions po, we are still open to answer questions sa Q&A tab. Our colleagues will be responding to your questions as well as Ms. Jonah will also respond to your questions. So, may we also remind po that for those who just got in the training room, ang ating pong PowerPoint presentation will be available online via PCW website. And also, although we are recorded live on Facebook, we are not being streamed live right now. Pero it will be accessible po via PCW website later on. So let us all give a virtual clap to our resource person, Jonah Tabu-Tataw. Thank you. Okay. As we proceed to our second session, our resource person will still answer your questions, just like I've said a while ago. So we have reached the end of our first session, and we hope that everyone has had their takeaways from the session of Jonah. Again, thank you very much to our resource person, Jonah P. Tabu-Tataw.
Okay, at this point, we will be proceeding to our next session. So our next and last session will introduce the Hagadaga program and project implementation, management and monitoring and evaluation, or the PIME checklist, including its elements. In addition, she will teach us how to apply the PIME in the project development cycle to ensure the gender responsiveness of the programs and projects. Our next speaker, Elizabeth B. Omasas, Beth as we call her, is one of our senior GAD specialists. Beth has had several years of experience working in the social development sector. She has been with the Philippine Commission on Women for 5 years already. So medyo may bagay na rin po talaga niyang madiscuss tong topic natin. She has worked with PCW for 2 years as planning officer in the Human Resource Management and Development section, 2 years as GAD specialist too, and now on her 5th year as senior GAD specialist in TSRCD. Let us give a warm round of virtual clap to Elizabeth Omasas. Welcome, Beth.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Neil, for that introduction. Thank you also for the virtual clap. So, how are you, everyone? So, just a bit of not reiteration, but just a bit of correction in what has been mentioned by Nina. I'm not yet. It's not my 5th year as senior GAD specialist in PCW. It's my 1st year, but I've been with the Technical Services Regional Coordination Division of the Philippine Commission on Women for the last 3 years already. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, and again, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Kumusta po kayo? Hindi po kayo makapagsalita. So, I hope you are all well and good, despite our individual circumstances. As you know, we are facing COVID. This Delta variant is very, very good afternoon po, Ma'am Elizabeth. And good afternoon din po sa lahat. So, Delta variant is very scary. So, I hope everyone is doing just fine and safe. Let me just adjust my camera. Okay. So as mentioned by Nina, my task here is to inform or discuss to you guys what PIME is all about. So for me to be able to do that, please allow me to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, are you now seeing my screen? Can I get a thumbs up for that if positive, and thumbs down? My thumbs down ba? Okay, 14, 15. Thank you very much for those who have given me their respective thumbs up. Okay. So a while ago, early in the session, Larry introduced to us the results of the TNA. So I have called out the results of the TNA specific to the PIME. So based on the results, we have here that a bigger number of our participants do not have an idea of what PIME is. No, that's 38%. Wala silang idea kung ano po itong PIME. Ano po ba yung PIME? Nakakain po ba yan? Nagiging lang po ba yan? And then 42% knows just a little about what PIME is. And 18% says they are familiar with PIME. And only 2% can confidently talk about it. So for those 2% who can confidently talk about PIME and discuss what PIME is all about, I hope this will serve as your refresher. But for those who really don't have an idea, I hope you will learn something from this presentation. Okay? The challenge for me is big, no? Kasi marami sa atin ang hindi familiar, hindi alam ang tungkol sa PIME. But I will try my best to dispense or to discuss the information on PIME the simplest way possible. Okay, there will be parts that will need your engagement in the session, and I hope for your active participation and 100% attention. Okay, I am only given an hour and 20 minutes to discuss 43 slides, so let's get this started. Okay, so we have here 3 objectives. Bakit natin i-discuss itong PIME? Bakit mahalaga itong PIME? Okay, so the first objective is, of course, I'd like to introduce to you what PIME is and its elements. Kilalanin natin si PIME. Second is to navigate you through the process of accomplishing the PIME checklist. And third is to apply the PIME checklist in the project development cycle and compute its attribution to GAD. So given our objectives, let me present to you the outline of my presentation. 4 lang po. So mabilis lang po ito. What is PIME? Second, bakit natin kailangan gamitin itong PIME? Why we should use it? Third, how? Paano natin siya magamit? No? And then the fourth is who should use the PIME checklist. So okay, let's get to know PIME. Before we get to know PIME, I have here a poll question. I'd like the technical team to launch the poll, and I request the participants to answer in a minute. Okay, within 1 minute. Okay, so based on your understanding, okay, what do you know or understand about the PIME checklist? Choose your best answer. So A, PIME ensures that GAD-related elements are integrated in the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation phases of the projects and programs. B, used to ensure whether or not the mitigating strategies or interventions to enhance the GAD rating of a major program or project have been implemented. C, actual cost of implementing programs are attributed to GAD. D, ensures that that program management staff are competent on GAD, and if GAD-related monitoring and evaluation indicators are incorporated in the program implementation. And F, I don't have any idea. So okay, the poll question has already been launched by the technical team, and may I request everyone to please respond in a minute. Okay, Nin?
Yes. Please answer po no sa poll feature natin, not sa chat box.
Okay. So are we seeing now how many % of the responses Nin?
So far, may sumasagot pa. So, we can give them 5 more seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. Good.
30 seconds, go ahead.
Okay.
Gusto nating makasagot ang karamihan.
Yes, at least 55% or 60%. Okay. On my screen, there are 16 participants who have raised their hands. Kanina pa pala ito. Okay. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Min, how many of our participants have already responded?
Okay, now that we have ended the poll, so far, malaking percentage ang nasa
64%.
letter A, yes.
Yes, correct. 64% of our participants have responded. So I don't know what happens to the remaining percentage. I like 36% did not responded to the poll question. Busy ba sila? Okay, I hope for your 100% attention, no? Okay, so what have you understand about the PIME so far? So first talaga, marami ang sumagot, 63%, no? Ensures the presence of the GAD-related elements are present all throughout the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation processes or stages or phases of the program. And then we have 19% used to review whether or not the interventions or strategies we have implemented resulted to an increase in the GAD rating, no? And then konti lang ang nagsabi na para makapag-attribute sa GAD, AR. And then of course, konti lang din, 1% lang, isa lang nagsabi na na using PIME will ensure that the project management staff will tell that the project management staff is competent on GAD. And then 13% says that to use PIME would mean to say informing us whether or not GAD-related monitoring and evaluation indicators are being incorporated in the implementation of the program and also in the monitoring and evaluation. And 4 says they don't have any idea. Well, basically, thank you very much. We can now stop share the results. The choices from A to E, they are all, except for letter F pala. All choices tell us what PIME is all about. So thank you very much for sharing your understanding on what the PIME, your understanding what the PIME is all about. Tama po, no? So, however, these choices will be further discussed in the part where we will talk about why we should use PIME. However, for the purpose of processing this poll question, let us just go briefly through each of the choices. First, yes, PIME ensures that during the implementation of the program and during the monitoring and evaluation of the program, GAD-related information is integrated or present all throughout. And then second, PIME also checks if along the course or during the course of the implementation of the program, our interventions have improved, and the gender responsiveness of these projects. And third, the use of PIME, it will come to know how much of the actual expenditure of the project can be attributed to GAD. And then, however, for this particular use of PIME, letter C, I would like to emphasize that the use of PIME in the attribution is, shall I say, secondary, because the primary use of PIME talaga is letter A, to really determine whether the processes that you employed or you have gone through or you have done during the implementation of your major programs and projects and during the monitoring and evaluation of your programs and projects are gender responsive or are GAD is present all throughout these stages. So the primary purpose of PIME, yan na nga po, ini-ensure niya na yung mga GAD-related information and GAD indicators are present all throughout this implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And lastly, PIME also ensures or checks whether or not members of the program or project management team are competent on GAD. Totoo po yun. Kasi PIME checklist is basically asking whether may knowledge po ba ang mga nag-i-implement ng program on GAD? Kung may knowledge sila, paano nila in-integrate ang GAD sa pag-implement ng program? Sa pag-monitor ng program, paano nila ginawa yun? How were they able to ensure the presence or the integration of GAD-related information in those stages of the project development cycle? So, okay. That ends our processing of the poll. Okay. May I see a reaction so far? Kumusta po? Thumbs up? Anyone? Saan po ba makikita dito yung thumbs up? Okay.
Yan. So far, may mga nagka-thumbs up. Marami, Ms. Beth.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nin, for confirming
More
that.
than 20 agad ang lumabas. Ayan na.
Ayan.
Baka umabot pa ng 700. Although we only have 679 right now in the Zoom room.
Sumobra tayo pag ganun.
May mga gusto pa mag-thumbs up more than who's present.
Okay, thank you, Nin, for that.
For those.
Okay. And also for those who have responded to, you have responded to the call for engagement, kasi online modality of dispensing knowledge on GAD can be challenging, but I hope to really engage you along the course of our discussions. Okay, yes, thank you po. Okay, so here, we all know that before we implement programs, or before we monitor programs, we must first plan and design these programs. Yan. Diba? Simula naman talaga tayo sa planning at saka sa pag-design ng programs. So basically, this is what we call the planning development cycle. We first plan the appropriate projects to be done, to be implemented, and we design them. Yan. And then after designing, we implement them and we manage the implementation. Sigurado ba tayo na na-implement natin? Sigurado ba tayo na in our implementation of these programs, we're able to integrate GAD-related information? Our success indicators are being considered. No? Our M&E indicators are there. Targeted ba? Nakamonitor tayo. So, and also in the monitoring and evaluations, it's basically looking into whether or not our success indicators are being met, or the performance indicators set during the planning stage and designing stages are being carried out or achieved. So the thing is, of course, when we plan programs, projects, and activities, the natural course of things is that we implement them and we monitor them. Ganoon naman talaga. Bakit ka pa nagpaplano kung hindi mo naman pala i-implement? So basically plan, we design these plans, and we monitor, we implement first, and we manage the implementation to ensure that all the success indicators, all our performance targets are being met in the monitoring and evaluation stages. Okay? So basically dito sa project planning and project designing, that's where essentially the GTV, preparation of the GTV processes are. But if for the PIME, dito po tayo sa monitoring and evaluation, it's basically being integrated, or these processes are being used when we do our GAD accomplishment reports. Okay. So with the introduction of the PIME checklist in the first session, with the introduction of the HGDG, Harmonized GAD Guidelines in the first session, we know that the Harmonized GAD Guidelines is a gender analysis tool. When you say gender analysis tool, of course, it seeks to know what are the issues ba? Ano bang mga issues sa ating implementation ng programs? Is particularly gender issues, no? And we also know, though, based on the discussion of Ms. Joanna, that the HGDG is composed of 2 checklists. First is the design checklist, and the second is the PIME checklist. So the design checklist is composed of 2 na checklist, the generic and the sector specific. But for the PIME checklist, there's only 1. Okay, isa lang po ang PIME. Well, the design checklists are used to determine the gender responsiveness of the project designs. No? Kung gender responsive ba ang inyong mga project proposal, ang PIME checklist naman, chine-check niya yung implementation natin ng project na naiplano natin or program na naplano natin. And the monitoring and evaluation processes that we do are gender responsive. So essentially, the PIME is an acronym. No, basically, acronym siya. Yan, PIME. What does this stand for? What PIME stands for this. Boxes indicated below. Okay. Box 16, composed pala siya ng 2 boxes, the box 16 and box 17. So box 17 is the checklist used to check whether the implementation and management of your major projects and programs are gender responsive. It is composed of 4 elements and with a maximum score of 8 points. The box 17 naman is a checklist used when you monitor the implementation and you evaluate the implementation of your programs and projects. Consisting of 5 elements and with a maximum score of 12 points. Okay. Yan, overall, no, we have a total, the PIME checklist is a total of 9 elements, so 20, overall total score of 20 points. Like the design checklist, 20 din po ang overall highest score. So at this part, allow me to introduce to you the anatomy of the PIME checklist. Sinabi natin na 2 boxes siya, box 16 and box 17. So box 16 is used to determine whether gender responsive ang ating pag-implement ng programs, and then the box 17 whether or not our monitoring and evaluation processes are gender responsive as well. So okay, in the first column, I have here the elements. So that's column 1, no? Pinapakita sa atin na ayan po pa ang mga elements ng PIME checklist. Yan. So the succeeding 3 columns is the scoring options, no? And then the last column is where you, when you accomplish this checklist, where you put your overall score per element. So, the PIME checklist, no, comes with a guide. Both box 16 and box 17 comes with a guide on when and how you will score no, partly, and yes. Okay, so it is imperative and important that when you do PIME, when you subject your major programs to PIME, you read this guide in accomplishing the boxes for you to be guided on when to score yes, when to score partly yes, and when to score partly no. Okay, so yan po ang essentially ang PIME. Okay. Gender responsiveness during implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Seeks to know gender responsive ba ang ating mga processes during the stages of the planning development cycle. Okay, so let's proceed. Oh, part 2 na agad tayo. Ang bilis lang natin, no? I hope you were able to get something out of that first part. So the second part is, why use PIME? Any idea? Basically, na-discussan na natin ito partly. Yung during sa poll question, but just reiteration and more emphasis on this part. Let us discuss this. Why use PIME? Bakit nga ba magpipime? Bakit kailangan magpime? Essential ba talaga yan? So first is because we want to know whether or not our mitigating strategies or interventions to enhance the GAD rating of our development program or project have been implemented. This is when along the course of the implementation of your program, if there are gender issues that have emerged, and these gender-related concerns need to be addressed, PIME determines ensuring that even in the implementation, the processes have been gender responsive, and that these emerging gender issues have been acted upon and implemented, and if And yes, this would likely result to an increase of your GAD rating. No? And then, of course, second, we would like to know if our interventions did really address or was able to address the gender issues in which the project or the programs are being implemented for. So bakit ka mag-i-implement ng program? Bakit mo in-identify ang mag-implement ng ganitong program? Say for example, livelihood project. Because ito ang data namin, marami ang mga walang hanap buhay in this part of our region, or in this part of our in our clientele, no? So maraming walang hanap buhay, so we implement programs. So we use PIME, then we implement programs. Implement mo na si livelihood project. Does your livelihood project was able to respond to the gender issue in which that livelihood project was being implemented for? So ayun, isa yun sa mga sasagutin natin kung gagamitin natin si PIME. Okay, at saka gender responsive po ba ang implementation natin? Ayan. And third is, uulitin ko lang po ito, nasabi ko na ito kanina, how much of the actual cost of the major flagship program can be attributed to GAD, AR. Okay, however, and again, at this point, I would like to emphasize that more than the attribution function of the PIME checklist to the GAD AR, the PIME ensures that throughout the implementation, monitoring, evaluation stages of your implemented project and programs, GAD is present in the processes and procedures. Ayun po talaga. PIME ensures that your implemented programs are gender responsive. So if you want to make your make your projects and programs gender responsive, check whether it is gender responsive. Check it against the PIME elements, no? Subject it to the PIME checklist. Ayan. So that's essential. These are essentially the basic reasons why we should use PIME. So you wanted to know because kailangan maging gender responsive ang mga programs natin. You would like, our agencies would like to contribute to the achievement of the national GAD targets, no, of the Philippines. So dapat like our agency should be able to contribute to these targets. And of course, gusto din natin na mapataas ang ating attribution sa GAD kasi konti lang ang ating utilization sa GAD budget, so baka makuha tayo dito. Essentially, ganyan ang mga sinasabing reasons kadalasan, but more than the increasing the attribution of the cost of the project to the GAD AR, ini-ensure talaga ng PIME na dapat gender responsive ang project natin, especially in the implementation and monitoring and evaluation. So ayun po ang mga dahilanan kung why we need to use PIME. So at this point, I'd like to know, kasi yung next part na natin is we will discuss the elements now of the PIME checklist. So at this point, I'd like to know if, what are your challenges, or do you have challenges in accomplishing the PIME checklist in the agency? So may mga na-encounter po ba kayong challenge or difficulties? So for you to be able to answer this, to respond, I would like you to go to menti.com. So, okay, go to menti.com and type the code you see on screen. That's 1901076. So the question is, what are the challenges or difficulties that you encountered or that are encountered by your agency in accomplishing the PIME checklist? So for me to be able to go to see your results, I'd like to stop share and go to menti.com screen. I'd like to request the technical team to send in the chat box the code so that our participants will be able to copy. Thank you very much, technical team. I'm now stop sharing my screen. And share another, the Menti. Okay, wala pa ako nakikitang sagot. Okay, how to full screen this one?
Let's give them time. Baka pupunta pa sila sa menti.com website.
Okay, meron na nga dito. Okay, I'm seeing now.
Yan,
I'm seeing now, yes, responses na nin. So, challenges gathering MOVs. Mahirap daw mag-gather ng mga means of verification. OMG. Then, we don't use it yet. Okay, hindi pa kayo nakagamit ng PIME. No idea about PIME. Okay, sad. Incorrect application. Oh, how come? Bakit siya incorrect? I think the used application of PIME is basically, well, at some point, self-explanatory siya kung masusundan mo siya. But if it's your first time, it can really, be foreign to anyone. Kung first time talaga, ano to? Para saan to? Ganyan. Ano itong mga hinahanap nito? Ganyan. So what else? So we are seeing gathering in office is the big thing, no? Nin? No idea. No idea about PIME. Okay. So essentially, haven't tried, not yet very clear, no experience yet. So we are seeing 53 responses pa. So saan ang iba nating mga participants? Hindi sila pa nagre-respond. Untrained program manager. Okay, untrained daw ang program manager kaya nahihirapan. Sounds foreign, ma'am.
We encourage everyone po to participate sa menti.com.
Yes,
Punta lang po kayo sa menti.com and then encode nyo po 1980-1076.
Thank you, Nin, for that. Okay, limited knowledge of staff, not a priority. Oh gosh, sakit no, not a priority. Okay, else. Okay. So again, I think we are 98 pa lang, so stop na natin to. When we reach 120, okay. 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 All right. So basically, we are seeing those responses, no, na marami sa kanila ang tawag dito. No idea.
Yeah.
Tapos foreign sa kanila si PIME, and then
Or not clear.
Not clear. So I hope, I will not stop share my screen and go back to my presentation. I hope that as we go through the discussion on PIME, somehow you will be able to gain an understanding of what it is really all about, how it is being accomplished, and what its uses are, why is it important. I hope you will be able to gain an appreciation on this checklist. Okay. So thank you very much for your responses. Although 104 lang ang nag-respond out of our, siguro nahihirapan sa internet or to navigate the Menti. So
Yes,
I'd like to
maaari,
know
may
your
mga-
responses on that.
Opo. Baka may mga nag-a-adjust pa rin sa menti.com. Pero
Yes.
we're happy na may mga nag-respond. So thank you.
Meron ba sa chat? Meron ba nag-reply sa chat?
Meron.
Ano sabi dyan? COA representative also not aware on how to utilize PIME. Oh. Okay, what else? The PIME implementers use the PIME after the projects and programs done. Correct. It's supposed to be during implementation sana. 2, Ma'am Antoinette, 2, you use back 16 during the implementation and management of the program, and you use evaluation back 17 when you monitor and evaluate the program. Meaning when you monitor and evaluate, could be your project is already done. But there are projects that are multi-year, no? Hindi lang pang isang taon, hindi lang pang 3 taon, but multi-year. So, and you conduct annual evaluation for that, you can still use PIME. The back 17, the monitoring and evaluation, even if it's not yet done. But para malaman kung ano yung accomplishment within the year. Are we on track with our monitoring and evaluation targets? Success indicators, performance indicators, so forth and so on. So, ayun. Ma'am Pilipinas, we need to have an in-depth training for our GAPS to do this properly. Thank you very much for that, ma'am. Train 2 heads of agencies and TWG members. Okay? Yes, basically important talaga. How can you be able to actualize or conduct PIME, administer PIME, and subject your major programs to PIME if you don't have a knowledge on what PIME is all about. Okay. And that will do, of course, no? Kailangan siya. Kung kailangan ng agency ninyo, why not? And train the GFPS members and agency head. Lack of training need. We are seeing yun. Kulang talaga daw sa training sa PIME.
Yes.
So,
it
so
shows that they really need a lot of additional training in relation to this topic.
yes,
Some of them are not part of the project planning daw. Kaya hindi siguro sila nakaka-encounter ng training.
Yes, okay. But I hope so that moving forward, you will be able to develop your appreciation in PIME and see, you come to realize that PIME is indeed very important in the monitoring of your programs and projects that you subject to GAD, no? And then if you have this appreciation on PIME is and what PIME is, what its uses are. You can influence your agency heads or the executive members of your GAD focal point system to conduct an in-depth orientation on what this PIME is all about. Para talaga, you can seamlessly administer this, you can seamlessly subject your major programs and projects to the checklist. Okay? So sige, limited number of characters allowed in Menti. Sorry for that. We recognize the limitation of Menti and maybe we will find other solutions in our future webinars. Instead of Menti, we will be using Padlet so that you can express your thoughts fully. Okay. So Nin, thank you very much and for assisting in the processing of the Menti and of course in the chat box. Also for the participants for all your responses. Okay, so taking off from your responses, let us now discuss individually what these PIME elements are. Let us first start with box 16 and okay. Box 16, the PIM, implementation and management elements. GAD checklist for project implementation and management. Okay, so the PIM, box 16, is composed of 4 major elements. But as you know, pinakita ko kanina sa anatomy of the PIME checklist, ano po, each major element has sub-elements. The sub-elements are primarily questions that you need to respond, you need to answer. Presence or absence, how, when, why, ganun. So if you're able to do that, good for you. But moving on, first element, supportive project management. Yan. So all these 4 elements pala of box 16, it has a maximum score of 2 points. Okay, on each of the succeeding slide, we will discuss later, no, how the details of each of these elements. So first, supportive project management. Tinatanong pala ng PIME kung supportive ba ang project management, no, sa ini-implement na program. Okay, and then if the staff involved in the program of the implementation and monitoring are competent on GAD. Technically, competency on GAD ang hinahanap dito sa element number 2. And then element 3 is the agency committed. Okay, committed ba talaga ang agency to implement gender equality targets? And then fourth element is the GAD implementation processes and procedures. Okay, let's go detail by detail natin itong bawat element na to. So supportive project management. Yan. 2 points for 2 points. So as mentioned, this element asks if the project management is supportive of GAD. Does the achievement of gender equality goals of the project being implemented is one of the primary considerations in the implementation and monitoring of the program? Or minomonitor lang kasi para malaman kung ano na ang natapos, ano pa ang kailangang tapusin, kailan itong tatapos. Ganun. This particular indicator seeks to know whether the management is not just interested or supportive of what has been accomplished or what needs to be accomplished pa, but it seeks to know whether your project leadership or project management team is supportive on GAD. And if the achievement of the GAD gender equality indicators is one of the primary considerations in the implementation of these programs. So if you are part of the project implementation team or project management team and monitoring team as well, and you are tasked to write a report for this, how will you be able to surface this particular element in your report? No? Paano mo yan siya mapapalutang sa report mo na, yes, indeed, supportive po ang mga project management namin dito sa GAD, ganyan. Sinisiguro talaga na yung mga GAD gender equality indicators set during the planning stage and designing stage are being implemented as planned. Okay, so how will you be able to do that? Of course, yan. You have to interview the project leaders, you have to review the minutes of the meeting. No, you have to even interview GAD focal persons and to surface if indeed there is the project management team has made available gender expertise or consultant all throughout the implementation phase of the program. So you have to review the job descriptions. So basically, madali lang naman siya eh. Paano malaman kung supportive ang project management natin on the implementation of the program with primary consideration, no, on ensuring that gender equality indicators are being implemented as planned. Madali lang siya. For me, no, madali lang siya. But I hope you are able to digest this particular element. Tinatanong lang dito during implementation, supportive ba ang management sa GAD? How? Paano mo nasabi yes? Ayan. You can do your processes by doing the interviews, reviews of documents and minutes, and so forth and so on. Okay. Next element. Under the implementation pa tayo ha, back 16. Technically competent staff or consultant. Ano to? Ano to? Bakit niya kailangan hanapin na dapat competent on GAD ang technical staff? This element seeks to know, or this element asks if the project involved, a project team, or project management team involved in the program, in the implementation of the program, are competent on GAD. And if they are competent, and if they are indeed competent, are they able to integrate GAD in the process of implementing the program? Nagawa ba nila yun? Enough ba na may capacity sila, competency sa GAD, but they are not able to implement this GAD competency in the implementation of the program? For example, kung yes ang sagot natin dyan, when we do our implementation and management activities, if yes ang sagot dyan and they are able to integrate GAD in the program, how? You have to do follow-up question for that. How? Paano nila na-integrate ang GAD sa processes required in the implementation of the program? And then second, may mga babae ba or ang lalaki na na-involve sa pag-implement ng project? Of course, no. We always say this. Of course, babae at lalaki naman talaga nag-i-implement ng program. Hindi na kailangang sabihin. At as early as this time, I'd like to let you know that it's very important to mention in the report that yes, men and women are involved in the implementation of this project and this program, and they are competent on GAD. And this is the number of men who are involved, and this is the number of women who are involved. And thus, the project required that its management, its monitoring and evaluation team are also equipped on GAD. So tinitignan, no, simula pa lang sa competence ng people, ng project management team, babae at lalaki involved ba sa pag-implement nitong project na to, yung monitoring and evaluation team, may competency ba sa GAD? Now, how will you be able to know this if you are the ones asked to write the implementation report of the project? You have to know, you have to review CVs of the project management team, or you can conduct focus group discussions. You can also review the job descriptions of the project management team members to see if whether or not they are really competent on GAD. May mga alam ba ito sa GAD? Kasi kung wala silang alam sa GAD, paano nila ma-ensure na implementation ng program or project na ito is gender responsive? So, ganun. So, third element is committed Philippine agency. Dito, hinahanap ng element na ito if the involved government agency is committed as evident by its constant participation in GAD activities of the implemented project. And if there are gender issues encountered in the implementation phase of the project, these gender issues are being what? Thus, these gender issues that are encountered are being integrated in the agency's GAD efforts, such as incorporating the issues in the agency's GAD plan and budget. To do this, if you are the ones preparing the completion report, you can review documentation or GAD-related activities sponsored by the project, and interview relevant personnel who are involved in the implementation of the program. So it's very important, no, that this element is asking us whether, of course, kung ikaw yung agency mo ang nag-implement ng program, how committed is your agency is, okay, to achieve the gender equality indicators, no? And then kung may mga gender issues na nag-emerge along the course of the implementation of the program, ina-address ba ito ng agency? How? Paano niya ina-address? Kasi wala na kaming budget in the wala na kaming budget to address the gender issue during the implementation of this project. So maybe we can integrate this gender issue in our GAD plan and budget. So that could be one of the action points of the agency. So dito sa particular element na ito, tinatanong lang kung how committed your agency is in incorporating gender issues that have arisen that emerged during the implementation date. So you have to review relevant documents with that. Kanina nakita natin na ang challenge nila sa pag-implement sa pag-conduct ng PIME, no, is yung MOVs. Mahirap daw mag-gather ng MOVs. So as early as this time, no, if you are implementing programs and projects, you have to be very conscious of the documents, the means of verification. So documents, minutes of meeting, very important. Yung mga, if you are doing if there are documents that are present or existing that says of your conducted HGDs or meetings asking the men and women involved in the communities, so could serve as one of the MOVs as well. No? So importante, keep track of your MOVs along the course of the implementation of your program. It will help you when you prepare your completion reports. And as we all know, completion reports are necessary. We cannot subject anything. You cannot subject your major GAD program to GAD without the completion report. So let us ensure that your completion reports are gender responsive by incorporating all these elements, PIME elements. So the fourth in the back 16, the project implementation and management is the GAD implementation processes and procedures. So this element basically asks whether men and women are involved in the various phases of the project, or does participation in the sub-phases or components of the project is only limited to the project personnel. May mga ganyan kasing instances na wala involvement yung example, yung project stakeholders or project recipients. It's only the project proponents who are deeply involved in the implementation of the program. Sometimes dito pala sa PIME, tinitignan din kung how the project management team is involving the project stakeholders, project recipients in the implementation. Kailangan din pala, paano pa sila i-involve? Ayan, dito. Another point is if the project has a clear GAD strategy in the implementation phase of the program. Say, for example, does the project being implemented ensures achievement of gender equality indicators as planned? For example, sa livelihood project na na-mention kanina, no? How do we ensure that gender equality targets are indicated sa ating implementation, integrated sa ating implementation? Nagplano nga tayo, livelihood, okay, ito po yung gusto naming gender equality target na ma-achieve. Ito po yung gender equality indicator namin, 100% of men and women. As baseline, no? As identified, have benefited from this project, are being consulted in the implementation of this project. Ganon, for example, ganon yung gender equality indicator. So, paano mo siya ma-ensure na may participation nga sila sa pag-implement mo? You have to involve them. Tatanungin mo sila. You go to the communities, you go to the areas where the projects are being implemented, or you call them, set a venue. Okay, so in the implementation of the project, example, livelihood, road project, ano po ba ang mga concerns na nakikita natin dito? May mga concerns na ba, emerging issues that we need to address, that the project team needs to look into? So, mga project. You can do FGDs, you can review the document and publications, and talk to the key informants, especially the recipients, because they are the ones who can tell you if indeed GAD is integrated during the implementation of the program. Okay. So this basically is back 16 all about. Basically what back 16 is all about. It looks whether the management implementing the program is supportive, if the staff or the personnel or the project management team involved in the implementation of the program are competent on GAD, and if the agency, say for example, implementing this program is committed enough to achieve the gender equality target set during the planning stage of the project, and if GAD indicators or gender-related information are incorporated all throughout the planning process. So given all these tips, no, kung paano ninyo ito isa-surface sa reports ninyo, you can consider actually doing this sa inyong paggawa ng completion report to ensure that indeed gender responsive ang ating processes and procedures, ang ating program as a whole during the implementation phase. Ayan. So I hope you were able to get something out of that box 16. Let's proceed to the box 17. Ito naman, implementation and monitoring. Kailangan din palang tingnan no, kung gender responsive ba ang ating pag-monitor at pag-evaluate ng mga programs. Paano ba ito? Paano kaya? So here, this box 17 is composed of 5 major elements, and as mentioned, the same with box 16, may mga sub-elements din ito. Ay sub-elements per major element that will serve as a guide question for you to crack your reports. Okay? Yan. First is, if a project monitoring system, including the indicators that measure gender responsiveness in outputs, results, and outcomes are present. Okay? Sa inyong pag-monitor and pag-evaluate. And second, kung may project database ba, including SDD and gender-related information na inyong nag-gather when you do your monitoring and evaluation. When you did your monitoring and evaluation. And then a third is a gender equality and women's empowerment targets are met. Na-met ba? Kung ano ang tinarget during the planning stage, the designing stage, na-met ba? So we come to know. And then this, kung napansin ninyo, malaki ang points na nakaalat dito, 4 points. Siya lang sa bukod tangi sa lahat ng elements ng PIME, ang 4 points. The rest are 2 points, have a maximum score of 2 points. But dito talaga, 4 points is being given to the achievement of gender equality targets. Okay. Kung yung na-implement ba nating program or project, thus, the gender equality indicators set during the planning and designing stage of the programs or activities or projects. So, malaking bagay siya dito, no? 4 points siya. And then the fourth element under this monitoring and evaluation is if the project addresses gender issues that have arisen during or from the implementation. Okay? 2 points lang po siya. And then, okay. Oh, sana ako. Bakit ako bumalik? Okay. Fifth, if there is a participatory monitoring and evaluation processes, hindi lang pala during the planning dapat participatory and inclusive tayo. Pati din pala sa monitoring and evaluation. PIME seeks to know whether your monitoring and evaluation processes are participatory, inclusive, or ikaw lang ang gumawa ng monitoring and evaluation. Ayun. Okay. Moving forward, let's discuss this element one by one. Project monitoring system including indicators, okay, that measure outputs, results, and outcomes. This particular element seeks to know whether or not the project being implemented require gender-sensitive outputs and outcomes. Basic. May mga project kasi na in-implement lang, walang gender equality indicators kasi ang tinitignan lang is, this project is done. This project is being implemented and done. Input, number of beneficiaries or recipients who have benefited from this program. Ganun lang. So, ano ba ang mga gender equality indicators na hinahanap ng program? Meron ba? So, yan. The M&E seeks to know that. Okay? And also, if you can observe, number 1 din na hinihingi dito sa box 17 or sa M&E, ang mga gender-sensitive outputs and outcomes. And if the project management team monitors these gender equality indicators which were set during the planning stage. To know this, of course, kung na-met ba, wala ba, may mga gender equality indicators ba talaga itong project na ito, or ang project lang ito based sa kanyang design, ang sasabi lang na implement ito on, where, what, ganyan. And then, wala man lang sinasabi kung ano ba ang mga gender equality targets na gusto nating ma-achieve dito. Dapat all women in this particular locality is being served by this project or program. Walang ganun. And then, ano po ba ang mga qualitative outputs na gusto nating ma-achieve dito? Like, nagkaroon ba ng achievement or nagkaroon ba ng improvement sa kanilang sa kanilang welfare, sa kanilang way of living in the communities. That's our project contributed to that. So these are the gender equality indicators that the number one element seeks to know when we monitor our programs and projects. Monitor and evaluate rather. So how? Paano natin ito malalaman? Of course, dun sa log frame pa lang, sa planning, sa senat nating log frame, sa framework natin. When we identify the program, we'll come to know, ito yung gender equality indicators na sinet ng project team during the planning stage and designing stage. And then ito din yung M&E plan. So based on this framework and your M&E, tignan natin now that the project the project is done or halfway through its implementation, ano na ba ang na-achieve natin? Okay, so you can go check your log frame and monitoring and evaluation plan for that. Okay, for sure naman, dapat kung sa designing pa lang ng inyong program o project, gusto niyo na gender responsive, for sure may mga gender equality indicators and targets po yun. So go check it. And then after checking, see if what has been accomplished so far. So that's the first element. Gender equality indicators in the outputs, results, outcomes of your implemented project. Okay, pinakauna talaga, no, hinihingi niya. Okay, ano po ba ang mga gender equality indicators na nandito sa in-implement nating project? Ano ba ang na-achieve? Okay, so moving on to the next element is this. Ano po ba ito? Yan, SDD. Pag nag-monitor pala tayo at nag-evaluate ng ating implemented program, sinahanapan tayo ng PIME ng SDD. Hindi lang basta-basta database. Okay, may database na po kami. Ito na po yung naka-benefit sa program. Vis-a-vis doon sa targets natin. Ito na po ang mga related data na kailangan natin. Naka-sexist aggregate po ba yun? Bakit kailangan natin sexist aggregate? Because you all know that men and women have differential needs. That's why you need to know what are these needs, and if indeed kung sa ating pag-sexist aggregate, nakikita natin kung the number of women as targeted have been reached. Okay, the number of men as been targeted by the project is reached. Okay, and the gender equality indicators are there in your SDD. Let's say, for example, improvement in the welfare, improvement in the access to resources, improvement in the control, improvement in the participation of men and women in the decision making. Na-reach po ba yan ng inyong project? Now that you are in the monitoring and evaluation phase, nakikita po ba yan na may pagbabago sa buhay ng mga lalaki at kalalakihan at kababaihan who are recipients of your programs and projects? So that is essential. Number 2 talaga, no? Pangalawang hinahanap sa pagmomonitor ng ating programs. If we want our programs, if we want our monitoring and evaluation to be gender responsive. Okay, so ano po ba ang mga, ayan na nga po, sinabi ko na kanina, nagkaroon po ba ng impact sa buhay ng mga kalalakihan at kababaihan in connection to WAC-PC, welfare, access to resources, awareness, participation and control, and improvement in the participation of women in the decision making? Kasi in most of the time, no, hindi ko naman nila lahat, but most of the time, there are decision making that needs to be done. It's the men who decide. So that's the women. Okay? Nagkaroon ba ng improvement? When we implemented the project, no? Are their voices being heard during the implementation kung may issues na ni-raise sila? Did the project management team was able to act on these raised issues by the women? And then, did the women participate in the decision-making process? So for example, there are gender issues that have risen during the implementation of the program, and then the women said, "Oh, we have this issue. No, we cannot participate in that activity because it's a time where our husbands are in the fields and we have to take care of the children. How are we going to be able to participate in that activity?" Paano po yun? Paano po yun ina-accommodate ng project management team? And if the women says, okay, we want the consultation as to the progress we made, in the implementation of the program, be done at 8 p.m. because may mga babantay na ng aning mga anak by that time. That's this decision making, that's this suggestion from the women's group is being incorporated. Say for example lang, so mga ganong considerations. So hinahanap siya sa PIME. No? hinahanap siya kung yung mga contributions, kung mga decisions ng mga kababaihan, nakapag-contribute ba sila. Okay, how are you going to determine this when you are doing your monitoring and evaluation report? Okay, you can review your database and review the reports that are being generated in the database. You can check if the database also is being reported at the national level for consolidation and consideration for further analysis by, department. Okay, so ayan po. Number 1, hinahanap kung may gender equality indicators kayo sa pag-monitor. Number 2, may SDD ba? Importante, SDD, no? Ito, number 3. Everyone, number 3. Gender equality targets. GEWE, gender equality and women's empowerment targets na met ba? 4 points, ang laki, no? 4 points, ang bigat nun. Kung yan lang, sa buong PIME, yan lang ang score mo, pwede ka na makapag-attribute sa GAD. Okay, so first is, this element seeks to know whether the welfare of men and women and status, no, has been improved or has improved by the project, or does the impact of the project, the results of the project positively impacted the lives of the women in the communities or in the areas where the project is being implemented. So yes, you can ask whether their welfare, the welfare ng mga kababayan at lalakihan ay nag-improve na ba? And then, another question that this particular element seeks to know is if the project being implemented has helped develop the competency of the implementing agency to implement more or further gender-responsive, gender-sensitive projects. Kasi naranasan na nila kung paano mag-implement ng gender-responsive projects and programs. So following the elements ng PIME, no? So ngayon, kung mag-implement sila ng other projects or programs, you think na-improve ang kanilang mga competency? Okay? So next implementation ba ng kanilang major programs and projects? Magaling na silang mag-ensure na the project to be implemented is gender responsive, the project being monitored would likely result to being a gender sensitive or responsive one. So how to do this? You may interview. Of course, you have to go to the beneficiary or the recipient of the project being implemented. You can ask them, okay, paano po ba, especially the women, kung women's welfare ang hinahanap natin dito. Okay, ma'am, nag-improve po ba? How has this project, how has this particular livelihood project able to impact or positively impact your life? Ano po ba ang nagbago sa iyong buhay positively dahil sa ganitong project? You can interview these beneficiaries or recipients of your program and project. And as to the agencies, kung naging gender responsive na ba ang kanilang, nagkaroon ba ng upscaling of their skills in terms of implementing gender responsive projects and programs? Nagkaroon ba ng upscaling due to this experience? So you can interview whoever will be the members of the project management team, the GAD focal persons, even the consultants na involved sa project. You can, somehow we are able to develop competency in implementing gender responsive projects, gender sensitive projects, because we have gone through this. We have to ensure that we have the SDD, we have to ensure that mayroon kaming gender equality targets, MNE plan, ganito and so forth and so on. You can include that in your monitoring report. Okay. So fourth element, under the monitoring and evaluation checklist, if the project addresses the gender issues arising from or during the implementation of the program project. For example, sa nasabi nating livelihood project kanina, no? Say for example, during the implementation of the livelihood project, nagkaroon ng gender issue, may nag-arise na gender issue, and this particular gender issue would require recalibration and retargeting of your project targets. So, but this recalibration and retargeting of targets would also require what? Additional funds, ganun. Kasi hindi ito ma-implement kasi kulang na tayo sa funds. Hindi naman natin ito ina-anticipate na mag-arise ang ganitong gender issue. Now, if hindi naman natin ito ma-address, would result to an equal participation of men and women in the livelihood program. Paano kaya natin ito gagawin? So, does the project, kung ganito po, may mga ganitong issue pa during the implementation na mag-arise, as the project management team was able to address? Mga ganong klaseng katanungan. So as an evaluator, if you are the ones doing the monitoring and evaluation report of the particular program being implemented, you have to ask this particular question, no? Na-address ba yung mga gender issues na nag-arise during the implementation of the program? Yan, how will you be able to do this? Actually, hindi lang sa monitor, sa implementation phase, pati sa monitoring and evaluation. May na-monitor kayo na, okay, this is really a big issue that the management or the project management team was not able to address. How will this be? How will we move forward from this information? Anong yun ang gagawin niyo as agency? You can reflect that in your report. So how? You have to interview the project managers and other program proponents, implementers who are involved in the program, even the consultants. Okay. So sige, that's the fourth element for the monitoring, no? Sinisip niya kung ang mga gender issues na nag-arise nga po habang ini-implement yung program ay na-address ng project management team. Okay, on to the last element under the monitoring and evaluation is this. Participatory monitoring and evaluation process. As mentioned before, hindi lang pala dapat sa planning participatory tayo. But we have to do consultation, as mentioned by Ms. Joanna kanina, no? Dapat in our planning processes, consultative tayo, participatory tayo. We have to use participatory planning processes and appraisals, ganyan. So dito pala sa monitoring and evaluation, hindi din pala nating gawing participatory and inclusive ang ating monitoring and evaluation processes. So this element basically inquires whether or not there is an involvement of men and women in the monitoring and evaluation processes or activities of the program being implemented. So most especially on the gender-related impacts of the projects, because it's the men and women who can tell you whether or not, well, this particular project have positively impacted my life. Magandang i-report yun. You can include that in your report, sa inyong M&E report. And then, and men and women can also tell that if they are really being consulted in the monitoring and evaluation process. So to do this, you have to conduct visit, or you call men and women beneficiaries or recipients of your program, or directly benefited or indirectly benefited from your program or project that your agency has implemented. If whether or not, maganda nga po ang dulot ng programang ito sa amin kasi ganito po, kasi ganyan. You can include that in your project monitoring report. Okay. So essentially, those are the elements of PIME. Yun po yung 4 sa implementation and management, 5 sa monitoring and evaluation. In a nutshell, Box 16 basically seeks or looks for the integration of GAD or gender-related information made during the implementation phase of the program, while Box 17 naman, on the other hand, essentially looks for whether or not our monitoring or evaluation processes are inclusive and participatory. Hindi lang ba tayo ang nag-evaluate lang, gumawa lang tayo ng report on our own, or have we included our stakeholders, our recipients in the monitoring and evaluation process. Okay, so those are the elements of the PIME checklist. I hope you're able to somewhat gain an idea or an understanding of what PIME is all about based on our discussion on the elements. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A tab, question and answer tab. And so far naman, kumusta ang takbo natin? Okay pa ba tayo? Nandyan pa ba kayo? Nakikinig pa ba kayo sa akin? Or are you on doing something else? May I see a reaction? Perhaps a thumbs up? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Yan. Maraming salamat po sa inyong mga reaction.
Marami pa tayong kasama, Miss Beth.
Oo nga po. Thank you, Nin.
We're willing to learn from you.
Thank you so much, no, for your active participation. Kahit man nagkikita-kita, based on your reactions, you are quick to respond that indeed you are listening. Okay? So
actually, I'd like to cite, Beth, one clarification from our audience then. Kanina,
yes,
there was a clarification kung ang paggamit daw ba ng PIME ay kailan ginagamit ang PIME and the HGDG. Although we would like to emphasize to them na ang PIME po ay ginagamit sa design checklist for project design.
Correct.
And no, I'm sorry, ang design checklist po ay ginagamit para sa project design. Ang PIME checklist naman po ay for project implementation, management, monitoring, and evaluation. So pwede mo pong ma-expound to para sa ating audience.
Yes, thank you very much, Nin, for that, no? Insertion. Sabihin ko ba insertion? Ano to, budget? Anyway, yes. Nagkaroon yata ng confusion doon when siya gamitin. So, na-discuss ko kanina, project development cycle. When we do our programs, when we implement our programs, we come up with programs, you first plan for it. Nagpaplano tayo, dinidesign natin ang programming natin, focus on the budgeting, focus on budgeting and programming, and how to best respond to the gender issues that have risen, that have came up during the planning stage. So, of course, when you plan for programs and you design the programs, how should it be implemented? How should they be implemented? Naturally, we implement those programs. So during the implementation stage, doon mo na pwedeng gamitin si Box 16. Implementation and the management of the program to ensure that indeed during the implementation of this particular program that your agency is implementing, gender-related information are integrated and GAD is present in the process. So yung processes po na sinasabi ko, yun na po yung mga elements na hinahanap ng Box 16. So, okay. So that's for the implementation. And
so, Beth, we just want to emphasize to them that the PIME is part of the HGDG or Hagadaga. Hindi sila magkahiwalay. Hindi rin sila equally defined. Ang PIME po ay parte ng HGDG.
Yes, hindi po separate ang PIME sa HGDG, but PIME is one of the checklists ng HGDG. We all know, kanina na-mention ni Ma'am Joanna sa session 1, HGDG is composed of 2 checklists. First is the design checklist, and second is the PIME checklist. Design checklist is used when you want to know how gender responsive are your project proposals, your plans, your programs, not to be implemented pa. So you use that PIME, you use that design checklist, which comes in the form of generic and sector specific. If your project is infrastructure, you use the infrastructure checklist. If your project is on livelihood, you use a livelihood checklist to measure even there is a gender responsiveness of your implemented programs based on the proposal, based on the design that your agency has prepared for that project. Kasi hindi ka naman nakapag-implement ng program kung wala kang design. And then the PIME is when you now implement and you monitor your programs. I hope that's clear. Thank you very much, Nin, for that.
Thank you also.
Okay, so moving on. So this time, one of our objectives is to navigate you through the accomplishment of the PIME checklist. Paano po ba ina-accomplish ang PIME checklist? I have here a sample completion report which we can use in our practice session. But before we start assessing this particular project, I just have something to say. Okay, may sasabihin lang po ako. Before we subject this particular project to the PIME, whether if this project is gender responsive or not, I just like to say this na this particular completion report is an old one, and with due respect to the DOST, Department of Science and Technology, who is the owner of this report, I'd like to inform everyone that this particular report has already been enhanced and improved by the DOST. For the purpose of illustration, we are just using the old one kasi wala din kaming copy na updated, and for illustration purposes only to show how the elements of the PIME checklist are being located in the report. So without disrespect to the DOST. So again, having said all of that, let us now proceed to the program that we will assess to the PIME checklist. So what we have here is setup. It's a completion report prepared, as mentioned a while ago, by the Department of Science and Technology. So setup stands for Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program, which allocated a budget of 500 million, sourced from the agency GAA. So the program's area of concern to respond to is in the economic sector. It is economic in nature since it provides assistance to small and medium enterprises. It's a nationwide program which aims to encourage and assist small and medium enterprises to adapt to technological innovations to improve their operations and boost their productivity or competitiveness. So yan po ang programang set up. So it's a 7-page report, well written and comprehensive. On it are the essential components of a good completion report. Maganda siya, 7 pages, mukhang comprehensive. And yung mga components ng isang completion report, nandun na yung ano ba ang tinarget ng program na ito at ano na ba ang na-reach ng program na ito. So to check whether setup is gender responsive or not, we subjected it to PIME. So that was in 2018, no? Pero may mga enhancement na po ito ngayon as mentioned before. So on succeeding slides, we will discuss the element. We will discuss whether or not setup is gender responsive or not based on the version of the completion report that we have received in 2018. Okay. Ito na po. So again, back 16 po muna tayo sa implementation ng setup. First element, supportive project management. So based on the review ng project element mo, nakikita ba dun sa completion report ang support ng project management? So we went through the project document and then unfortunately wala kaming nakitang mention ng supportive po ang project management dito, nag-allocate nga po ng ganitong budget, pero it was not explicitly stated in the completion report. So the answer is no. Walang nakita na nag-mention na may support yung project leadership. So element 2, technically competent staff. So palagay naman namin, hindi man ito ma-implement kung, well, set up involves men and women, no? Given na yun. Pero mahirap kasi mag-assume eh. Our basis for evaluating the gender responsiveness of the program as to its implementation is the report, the implementation report. So pag hindi namin nakita doon, wala. 0 po ang magiging score noon. So for this second element, there was no mention of staff members that are or personnel complement who are involved in the setup implementation who are capacitated on GAD. So walang nakikita. There's no mention, although maganda talaga yung report, but there's no mention of this particular element, so 0 po ang naging score natin to. So on the third element sa implementation, committed Philippine agency. So for sure, hindi naman siguro masasabi natin hindi committed ang DOST kasi ang laki na inalat na budget, 500 million, plus nationwide pa po siya. Pero again, wala po siya sa completion report. So paano po natin masabi na ano po, committed po ang DOST dito na ma-reach yung mga gender equality indicators ng setup? Equal po ba ang kung nung sa pagplan pa lang nitong setup program, ano po ba ang mga gender equality indicators? Na-set po ba? Kung na-set naman, is na-mention ba siya sa na-indicate ba siya sa completion report? Wala, hindi namin nakita kung ano yung mga gender equality indicators doon, so na-0 kami. And then, wala ding mention yung mga mga succeeding interventions ng government agency. Kung may mga gender issues ba na nag-arise, tapos in-addressan ba niya, paano ba niya in-address, kung in-address ba niya, indicate ba niya sa kanyang GAD plan, kung isali natin doon sa GAD plan kasi malaking bahagi ito ng ating personnel or sa ating stakeholders and they need this particular capacity development or this intervention. So we can target this as one of our activities in the client focus or org focus. Unfortunately, wala kaming nakita ganon sa reports, so 0 kami. So the last element for the implementation checklist is whether or not GAD is integrated in the implementation processes and procedures of the setup program. So again, wala ding mention of the sub-elements 4.1 hanggang 4.4. So essentially, kahit maganda pala yung report, kung absent yung mga gender-related information, 0 ka pa din dun. So please take note that the elements should guide you in preparing your completion reports. If you want your completion reports to be gender responsive, check it against the elements of the implementation checklist. This back 16. Sa implementation pa lang po tayo so nakita namin 0. Sa implementation, hindi namin nakita si GAD, pero na-implement si project, si setup na-implement. Marami ang naka-benefit, pero walang mga gender equality indicators na na-include sa report when we also do not know kung may mga gender equality indicators sa design pa lang. So essentially, kung meron siya sa design, sana nandun din siya sa report, yung mga gender equality indicators, targets, and outcomes na gusto nating ma-achieve during the implementation of the program. So on to the next box. Dito naman tayo sa monitoring and evaluation. Sa pag-conduct ba ng monitoring and evaluation processes, set up, inclusive po ba ito? GAD Do GAD-related information or GAD is present in the process of monitoring the program? So nakita namin no, sa first element, sa pag-monitor pa lang, wala din. Walang mention ng ano po ang mga gender equality targets na gustong i-achieve ng setup. Dapat sa siguro no, dapat sa na-baseline na sample 50,000 women and 50,000 men. Kahit na yung ganun, mention lang, equality target na din yun GAD-related information na din yun Kaso wala. Men and women lang, number of men and women who have been served by this project, ganyan. So we cannot clearly say no, meron to partly o wala. But if hindi siya na-mention sa document, wala talaga siya kahit maganda pa yung project. No? So, two, project database or SDD, meron po ba? Well, dito at this part, since nag-report siya ng number of men and women served, number of beneficiaries or recipients, project recipients served, nag-mention siya ng data kung how much. Kasi importante no, kung paano ka mag-implement ng program at mag-implement ng program tapos hindi mo sinasabi kung sa monitoring mo ilan na ang na-achieve mo sa target mo, how the percentage of the extent of your achievement of the targets. So magbibigay ka doon ng data. So may data na binigay, naka-indicate sa report, pero unfortunately hindi siya naka-SDD. For us to merit a full yes or 2 points for this particular element number 2, you have to have the data sexes aggregated and gender-related information collected. Since monitoring na ito, ano po ba yung mga gender-related information? Improvements on the lives of women and men based as a result or outcomes of the project being implemented. So sa pagbibigay ng assistance sa small and medium enterprises, ano po ba ang mga qualitative data na meron tayo pwedeng ma-incorporate sa ating monitoring and evaluation report? So ayun, nag-improve po ang lives ng ganitong men and women. Some of the women are already self-sufficient and income generating na sila. Some of them who stayed at home, ganyan-ganyan, is nakapag-generate na ng incomes. So I have already 5 minutes, okay, left, but mabilis na lang po ito. Okay, so ano po yan? So nag-cap lang kami dyan. Okay. So third element na tayo, kung may mga GAW indicators ba, gender equality and women empowerment targets, wala din. So 0. Pati sa element 4, pati sa element 5, wala kami nakita. Kahit maganda yung report sa pagkagawa and fairness, pero wala kami nakita gender-related information, 0 pa rin ang score. So overall, sa box 17, 25, and sa box 16, 0. So ang overall score natin dyan, adding the 2 boxes is 0.25. And what does it mean? Kung 0.25 ka, ang score mo dyan is invisible. GAD is invisible for project subjected to PIME with a rating of below 4. Invisible po yan. Hindi ka pwede makapag-attribute. So the setup wasn't attributed. But based on that report lang project document. But since it's enhancement, I think nakapag-attribute naman si DOST. Okay? So kung 7.9, conditional pass ka dyan. So makapag-attribute ka a certain percentage of your actual expenditure to GAD, and then so forth and so on with the rest of the PIME scores. So as to how to compute, the same as with the design checklist, okay? So your PIME score divided by 20, that's the overall points of the PIME checklist, times 100. Times mo yun. So you will get now your percentage rating, no? And then i-multiply mo yun sa kung how much yung actual cost of the project. That would be your budget. That would be the amount that you can attribute to GAD. So that's the attribution process. Okay? So now, we know that Hagadaga, particularly the PIME, is a gender analysis tool, and the same is true with the gender analysis. The rest of the gender analysis tools, we use this to surface gender issues that our agencies can respond to. No? So how are we able to attribute? Nasabi ko na pala ito na paano tayo mag-attribute. We subject our project completion report to PIME checklist using the batch 16 and batch 17, and then reflect the results of the PIME ratings to the GAD AR. Okay, sa GAD AR po dyan sa attributed programs part. Okay. So having attributed, given example, nakapag-attribute na tayo, ano ang gagawin natin dun sa mga elements na low ang score natin? Example, for element 2 sa box 16. Sinasabi ng staff, nag-involve kami ng women and men. may SDD kami. Nakapag-consult kami sa mga women and men on the issues, the emerging issues na na-encounter along the course of the implementation of the program. And to see, we have integrated GAD in our processes and procedures along the course of monitoring and evaluating and implementing the programs. Pero bakit kami zero dyan? Kasi hindi naman siya nakita sa report. Kayo na project implementers, alam nyo na you have integrated GAD-related information in your processes. Pero we as readers, kung where you submit your reports for us to validate your assessment, hindi namin alam yun na ginawa niyo pala yun. So you have to report it. You have to reflect it in the report. So ano na challenge dyan? Example, kung low ang hindi pala alam ng project management team kung paano mag-integrate ng gender-related information or GAD equality targets sa project completion report. So ang gender issue mo dyan is limited capacity of the project management team to prepare gender-responsive reports or to integrate GAD-related information in a project completion report. So ano magiging intervention mo dyan kung ikaw yung ahensya? You have to conduct a write-up on how to integrate GAD in the project completion report. Kung SDD naman, for example, walang na-establish na SDD sa pag-implement ng project. Bakit? Bakit absent? Ayan, you can actually go dig deeper pa pagdating sa yung gender issue para mas targeted ang inyong proposed activity. So for this example, kung absence ng SDD ang gender issue mo, magiging mo dyan, intervention is of course, you have to conduct an orientation on how to establish the SDD of your agency. Okay, so that's basically translating low scores of the PIME checklist to gender issue, and then you can use the gender issue to take as a take-off point in preparing your GAD plans and budgets. Okay, so at this point, so ayan, nakikita niyo na po kung paano natin migrate yung gender issue to the org focus, so limited capacity, and then ano po ba ang cost? Kasi wala silang kaalaman kung paano mag-prepare ng gender responsive completion report. Ano ang target natin? Ating objective statement is we have to improve their appreciation, have to increase their knowledge, skills, and abilities in preparing gender responsive completion reports and integrating GAD in those reports. Okay, and so forth. And so alam niyo na kung paano siya i-integrate sa GAD plan and budget. Okay, moving forward. So again, basic tip lang. Pay attention to those scores na no or partly sa kada element and work to improve on it. You can actually revise your project completion report, of course, subject to agreement between you and the reviewer of your attributed program. Of course, pag-agreehan nyo kung carry pa bang i-revise yung completion reports ninyo. Okay? And then, ano pa ba ang pwede niyo magawa kung mga low ang ninyo? Sa mga low scores or zero partly na mga scores sa PIME checklist. Now, of course, you can identify what is absent in the process undertaken by your agency vis-a-vis the element, the element being asked. So kung hinahanap mo may gender equality targets, ang inyong monitoring and evaluation, ang inyong implementation of the program, wala naman pala. So work on it. Okay? You can work on it. Because it is only through knowing what is lacking that we can act on what is lacking. No? Hindi naman pwede tayo mag-act, mag-respond to a particular to a particular lacking element or lacking areas for improvement rather. Kung hindi natin alam kung ano yun. So we have to know first. Okay? Subject your project completion reports to the PIME checklist. And then second, you have to ensure that to answer the challenge kanina na wala daw mahirap mag-gather ng mga MOVs, ayun. Sa pag-implement nyo pa lang, when you begin to implement your program at kung ano-ano po yung hiningi ng isang gender-responsive project implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, kung ano-ano yung mga hiningi ng elements, i-record nyo na, i-safeguard nyo na yung mga MOVs ninyo dyan. Because the MOVs will serve as your evidence that you're not making up the contents of your completion reports. Huwag po tayong make up lang, no? Mag-come up lang ng kung ano-ano information sa ating reports. We can write our reports, completion reports beautifully, maganda ang pagkagawa with all the gender-related information, but you need to provide evidence of your report. So, MOV po ang kailangan natin na ina-attach po siya sa attributed program. Sinasubmit natin sa GMMS. Okay, so another last element pala, last tip is Ito yun. Maganda naman ang report ng setup. Maganda siya paggagawa, pero wala doon ang mga gender-related information na hinahanap natin during the implementation and monitoring ng programs and projects natin. So when you do your monitoring and evaluation, and you validate the completion report, we do not assume. Okay, we do not assume. So kahit alam namin na ginawa nyo ito, ang particular element is has been done, has been integrated in your processes or in the process of implementing and monitoring your programs, pero hindi namin siya nakita sa report, we will not say yes to that. We will not give you 2 points for that. We will not assume unless naka-state siya sa report. So, so given this, no assumptions to be made unless otherwise stated in the reports, because I'd like to share this to you, a saying. Brian Louis D is a monitoring and evaluation expert. He is an economist in the University of Stirling. So he says this: it is dangerous to assume either that what has been decided will be achieved or what happens is and what was intended. So, mahirap talagang mag-assume. Making assumptions is a bad habit. Assumptions are taken as a fact when in fact there is no proof. So in our conduct of monitoring and evaluation activities, we always base them on facts on the processes undertaken, ensure that these processes are documented to serve as evidence or obvious, and reflect the processes employed even during the implementation of the program until to the monitoring and evaluation. So ito na po yung tanong kanina na pina-validate ni Nina. Last part, on to the last part of my presentation. Mabilis na lang po ito. When, to, and who should use the PIME. Yan. First is of project team. Mahalagang malaman ng project team ang tungkol sa PIME. Hindi lang basta tayo mag-implement ng program without considering the elements being asked by the PIME. Especially nasa government tayo. We are all contributory to the gender equality, to the geo targets of the Philippines. So that contribute tayo doon. Our project has contributed something to for the achievement of the gender equality indicators of this sector. Ganyan. So for the project team, it will encourage your M&E to look beyond what has been done. What is the output, kung ano lang ang nagawa at kung ano ang natapos. So it will encourage your monitoring and evaluation team to really look beyond to what has been done, what has been achieved so far, ano ang ginawa at ano ang natapos. You will appreciate the results, knowing the results and the processes that are employed related to that. Yeah. So it will guide the project team sa kanilang evaluation and monitoring processes. Second is for, of course, the project implementers. Mahalagang malaman din ng project implementers. Bakit? Of course, in the course of use of PIME, integration of GAD or gender-related information is ensured because PIME is basically a checklist. It asks for the presence or absence of GAD indicators in the implementation and monitoring and evaluation. So kung may absence dyan na element, so it will inform the implementers. So wala tayo dito, how we should be able to arrest this particular element, how we should be able to respond to this particular element. Kaya pa natin itong ma-address na yun, nasa implementation stage pa tayo. Ganun. So lastly, for the members of the GAD focal point system, particularly the TWG or the Secretariat, PIME serves as a guide in determining what areas of the project implementation or M&E can be further enhanced by the project management team, and if the corresponding activities really did respond to the low-lying areas, or those low-lying areas or elements, sub-elements with low scores can be responded pa ba, or pwede natin siyang ma-respondan through inclusion of it in the GAD plan and budget ng ating agency. So mga ganong consideration, the results of the PIME will inform our GAD focal point system, should inform our GAD focal point system, the areas that need to be enhanced in the implementation and monitoring processes of our programs, and of course, kung ano yung mga issues that have emerged in the implementation and monitoring na hindi na kayang i-address kasi tapos na ang project. For example, ilagay na lang natin sa GAD plan and budget. Pwede nating ma-allocate pwede nating ma-target ang isang activity to respond to this particular gender issue. Okay. Yan. So when, again, of course, you do not use PIME when you identify projects and programs, Okay, you use design for that. You also do not use PIME when you design or you plan your programs or you identify or conceptualize, because essentially these two stages to use the design checklist to ensure that your designs or project proposals are gender responsive. You use PIME here at this part during the implementation and management, and of course the monitoring and evaluation of your implemented programs. Okay, so having said all of that, overall, if you want to ensure the gender responsiveness of your major programs or projects, you use the PIME. Subject your program through its completion report, and it will tell you what are the areas that you need to improve for your programs, especially in the monitoring and evaluation phase, to be responsive. And what are the further enhancements that could be done to improve it, for it to be really gender responsive, because eventually at the end of the day, the bottom line of everything, if you want to do attribution, you want our programs to be gender responsive. So we have the PIME to tell us how, what are the areas that we need to improve. Okay, so that ends my presentation. But before that, may pa-poll pa lang pala akong isa. So just a brief recap. Tignan natin kung may makakakuha ng tama. Okay, let's ask the technical team to please launch the poll and for participants to respond to our question. Okay, the question is?
Right now, we still have 632 participants in our room.
Okay,
So
thank you
again,
very
sa poll
much.
teacher po sila sasagot ulit.
Yes, thank you, Nin. Oh my God, we are seeing 3% pa lang. Konti pa lang ang nag-respond sa atin in 10 pa lang. Okay, increasing ang ating numbers ng participants who are answering the poll question. So the question is, yan. Project design is to GPB. Completion report, saan naman po siya? Saan po siya ginagamit? Okay, maganda to. Maganda to ang laban. May nagsabing both. Almost. Oh my God, both ni.
Para itong syllogism, no, Beth?
Oo,
If A is
yeah.
to B and C is to D, parang ganun siya.
Yes. Okay, you are seeing, okay, I think we can now end the poll at 60%. Okay, thank you very much, technical team. Can we show now the results? Okay, here in the screen. Oh my God.
Ayan.
Well, 45% got it right. Tama po ang 45%. Na kung ang project design na diniscuss ni Ms. Joanna ay ginagamit siya sa GPB, ang completion report naman ay ginagamit sa pag-attribute sa GAD AR. Okay, to the GAD accomplishment report. And no, it's not both. The 38% didn't get it right. I hope now you now have an idea kung saan po ginagamit ang completion report. Para po siya sa GAD AR. Diba? What our completion reports are for? We want to know if our accomplishments are gender responsive. So we do that through the GAD AR. Para ma-determine natin. Buti na lang walang nagsabing no idea. But no, GAD AR, a completion report, again, pwede siya magamit sa monitoring and evaluation. Pwede din. But essentially the purpose of the completion report, if you want to do attribution, is para sa GAD AR talaga. Okay, so I hope everyone, that's I think the question din ito sa ating TNA. Kung para saan ginagamit ang accomplishment report. Okay, thank you very much for your responses. So that ends my presentation on PIME. I hope that somehow you are able to gain something that would help you accomplish your checklist, that would help you accomplish the PIME checklist as seamlessly as you can. The use of PIME is ensures that our gender mainstreaming as a strategy to achieve gender equality and women's empowerment is being implemented in your respective organizations, in our respective organizations. To sum it all up, let us all put in mind the achievement of gender equality goals in every program or project that we implement is imperative. We do not just implement programs without achieving gender equality targets in mind. Okay? Because that's what gender mainstreaming is, the end of this thing. Okay? To end, allow me to leave you with this quote from Michelle Obama. Well, kilala naman natin kung sino si Michelle Obama. So, I quote her as saying that no country can flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself the contribution half of its citizens. Why half of its citizens? Because relatively, basically, women is the other half of the population. Kung hindi man babae ang population, lalaki po ang population. So, ayan. So, achievement of the involvement of women and not just men and vice versa in the implementation of our programs could mean achievement and your agency's contribution in the achievement of our national targets, national gender equality and women's empowerment targets. So again, thank you very much for your listening and for your active participation. I hope you were able to get something that would help you achieve, implement or conduct or subject your design, your completion reports to PIME seamlessly and easily by now that you have gained something or participated in this webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, and do keep safe all the time. Back to you, Nin.
Maraming salamat, Beth, for your guided discussion on the use of PIME. And for sure, no, mas na-clarify from the first session, mas na-clarify na po na ang PIME ay parte po ng Hagadaga. So this is a tool that we use para po to monitor and make sure na gender responsive po ang mga programs and plans. So sabi nga natin, we also want that everyone has learned more about the value, use, and application of the PIME checklist. This session also really emphasized to us that more than attribution,
Yes.
The GAD accomplishment report, the PIME checklist will also remind us to ensure that the planning, implementation, management, monitoring, and evaluation of the programs and projects of agencies are gender responsive. So, na-mention din naman ni Ms. Beth kanina na kung wala nga naman design, what is there to monitor? At kung wala pong gender responsive na program or plan, of course, what kind of program are we monitoring and evaluating anyway? So, very well connected po talaga ang session 1 and session 2, no, to make sure that what we're planning as programs and plans are really gender responsive. So ito po ay being hoped to respond to the needs of all gender. So we are now moving po to our next question. But of course, we would like to give Beth a virtual clap. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For sustaining the audience until this time. We still have around 626 participants. So we have about, that's about 92 to 93% of the total participants within today. So we are very happy po sa ating mga participants. Maraming salamat po for still joining us until this time. And hopefully, meron po tayong babaunin later pag tapos po ng ating session so that we can use them to our roles and work in relation to gender and development. So thank you very much again, Beth.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone.
May we cite now some questions that we can ask from Beth to respond to?
Yes,
So,
please go ahead. I'll try my
First
best.
question is the administration of PIME or Hagadaga checklist self-assessed? Or will it also be checked by PCW or COA?
Basically, PIME checklist, the administration of the PIME checklist is self-administering. However, if you will subject it to GAD, it will require submission of your completion reports and related attachments to the PCW through the GMMS, gender monitoring, ano ba meaning ng isang system, so something like that.
Gender mainstreaming
Streaming
monitoring.
and monitoring. Thank you, Ms. Nals, for that. Okay, you need the PIME ratings. The PIME ratings you indicated on the checklist, okay, the PIME checklist rather, will needs to be validated by the PCW or whoever will be your reviewer assigned to your agency. So ayun po, need validation. Self-administering, you can rate your PIME on your own. Basically, your GFPS can do that, or your project management team can do that. But when it reaches PCW, it will be subjected to validation. As to COA, I'm not privy to the process of COA, but I think whatever will be the assessment of the PCW, they follow. Okay. That's all. I hope it answers. Ms. Nas, if you have additional to that.
I think you answered very clearly.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Nin, is there anything?
Thank you. And then another question is, do we need to accomplish PIME if the PAPs are regular program or agency addressing gender equality?
Oh, basically, if you want to know if these regular programs are gender responsive, no, kahit pa naman siya nag-a-address na siya ng gender equality targets sa iyong ahensya, but still you would like to know if this program is gender responsive, you can, no? If your monitoring, your implementation processes, your monitoring and evaluation processes are gender responsive, you can do so. Oo, kahit ano pa siya, may mga gender equality indicators na siya. Okay? Again, kung isa-subject mo din siya sa, i-attribute mo din siya sa sa PIME ay sa GAD AR, it will also go through the validation. And again, yeah, pwede. Just to inform you, gender responsive ba yung magiging programs, yung mga programs ninyo sa monitoring and implementation phase. It's important.
Thank you. And siguro to save in the interest of time, may we ask the last question na lang po, no? But may we just remind the participants po to please respond to the resource person and activity evaluation with post test po na naka-post po sa chat box natin. So yun, nandun po yung link nakalagay. So please do not forget that because that's part of the requirement for you to get your e-certificate later on. So the question, Beth, is with regard to the formulated development plan, this is the project formulation of development plan. If we are to use the PIME, how can we identify whether the women's welfare and status been improved as a result of the formulation of the development plan? Same is true in responding to question 3.2 of box 17. This is relative to the attribution of the project implementation in the GAD accomplishment. Medyo may kahabaan siya, Beth, na question.
Yes.
I hope medyo na-pick up.
Yeah, na-pick up ko siya nin. And it's an interesting question. You are throwing the question to me and you have this development project development plan and then in it are gender equality indicators and then the question is paano malaman kung na-achieve kung may improvement or may achievement ng gender equality indicators? Well, go back to your performance targets, your success indicators. Ano bang tinarget mo dun? How can we say that indeed we have achieved this particular indicator? Go back to it. Go back to your log frame. Go back to your logical framework. Go back to your monitoring and evaluation plan. And if kung ano po yung mga indicators mo dun sa MNE ninyo, sa log frame ninyo, and so i-check nyo. Ano na ba ang nangyari ngayon? Check it against what has actually happened at the moment na nag-evaluate ka na or nag-implement ka na ng iyong program. It will tell you na nag-improve ka ba or not against your targets. Okay. I hope that answers it. Bumalik ka lang dun sa log frame mo. Or
Siguro
sa
we can
plan.
also, maybe we can also include na rin the remaining questions na rin.
Yes, go ahead.
Follow-up question po doon kay regarding design checklist not used in project design. Can we include an attributable project in the GAD AR with PIME only as an attachment, even if it was not part of the GPB for the year?
Wala siya sa GPB pero na-implement ng agency tapos sinubject niyo sa GAD AR. Well, you can attribute but you have to answer to COA for that. Bakit hindi siya nakasali sa planning niyo? Okay lang.
Thank you very much, Beth. So anyway, our colleagues are still responding to your questions kahit po hindi masagot through Miss Beth. So no worries po, mabibigyan po ng sagot ang inyong mga questions. So thank you very much. We would like to express our heartfelt thanks to Beth for being the resource person for this session 2. And we can also say na ang value ng kanyang discussion ay no matter how gender equality oriented ang isang agency or organization, this is a very valuable tool because we can assess kung ang program natin or plans are gender responsive. And what's important is this will contribute to our nation building through our programs that is inclusive of women and all gender.
Yes, that's
so that concludes. Yeah, thank you very much, Beth. So that concludes our second session for our fourth webinar. If you still have questions,
You are still free to put your questions on the Q&A tab in this Zoom webinar. As we proceed to this webinar, our technical officers are still with us to answer your questions. So let us synthesize the key learning points in today's discussions. Our resource persons have allowed us to understand the background and rationale of the Hagadaga, appreciate the features of Hagadaga and its importance to end users, recognize the significance of the core GAD elements in the project or program design through gender analysis, participate in a virtual exercise to assess a sample program using the Hagadaga design checklist, understand how to apply the Hagadaga design checklist in preparing GAD plan and budget, and learn different recommendations and tips on enhancing a document based on GAD elements of the Hagadaga design checklist. They have also explained to us the Hagadaga PIME checklist, including its elements and cost attributions to the GAD AR or accomplishment report, how we can navigate through the accomplishment of the PIME checklist, how we can compute for the project budget, and how to apply PIME in project development cycle to ensure project gender responsiveness. Overall, it will be good to keep in mind that Hagadaga is a useful tool towards identification and implementation of gender-responsive programs and projects. Again, maraming salamat po sa ating mga resource speakers, Jonah and Beth, for providing us insightful sessions. We at the PCW hope such made our participants are even more motivated to use the Hagadaga beyond attribution and compliance. So hopefully po, marami po tayong takeaways for today's session. Again, please feel free to download a copy of today's presentation through the link that appears on your screen and in the chat box. You can also scan the QR code that you can see on your screen to access the presentation materials for today's webinar. We also would like to reiterate that each participant will have to complete at least 2 hours and 30 minutes webinar attendance, pass at least 70% of the post-test, and accomplish the activity and resource persons evaluation form to get your e-certificate. So no need na po para mag-email because the basis will be the items that we mentioned. The link is already provided in the Zoom chat box po, and you may now fill out the said forms para po sa mga resource person and activity evaluation form with the post-test. Okay, so to close our session today, may I now call on our Executive Director, Attorney Christine Rosary E. Yuzon Chavez. Let us give our virtual clap to DDK. Welcome, DDK.
Thank you, Nina. Good afternoon, everyone. Juan and GAD advocates in the government. I hope you are still okay. Our GAD webinar session for today provided an in-depth discussion on the utilization of the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, or the Hagadaga tool, to mainstream GAD elements in the project development cycle. We urge all government agencies and instrumentalities to mainstream GAD elements in their major, flagship, or banner programs and projects, and to develop intervention in addressing gender-related gaps. Through this process, the use of the Hagadaga tool significantly influences agencies' planning, programming, budgeting, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation processes to be gender responsive. As mentioned in today's session, the overall objective of the Hagadaga tool is to promote the twin goals of gender equality and women's empowerment by providing development practitioners with a common set of analytical concepts and tools for integrating gender concerns into development programs and projects. We hope that our participants today will be able to apply the key takeaways to support institutional strengthening of GAD in your respective institutions. On behalf of the PCW, I would like to express my gratitude to our resource persons for their valuable expertise and interactive discussions. Ms. Joanna Tabu for discussing the use of the Hagadaga generic and sector-specific checklists and applying GAD elements in program and project design. And of course, our very own Elizabeth Umasas for discussing the use of the Hagadaga PIME checklists and assessing the gender responsiveness of the implementation, management, monitoring, and evaluation of programs and projects. I would also like to thank the PCW Technical Services and Regional Coordination Division headed by Ms. Narlene Santos Millar for continuing their efforts in organizing the PCW GAD Webinar Series, which is the Commission strategy for the provision of GAD capacity development and technical assistance to our stakeholders. My gratitude and appreciation also go to each and every one of you. Your commitment to learn despite the challenges and the odds of the pandemic are truly appreciated. We are very thankful for your support and commitment to our advocacy towards gender equality and women's empowerment. To further advance our capacity development in GAD, we are excited to share with you 2 more upcoming PCW webinars. These are the GAD planning and budgeting from preparation to GAD funds audit. This will be on October 7, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Opening for this will start on September 28 at 2 p.m. The last GAD webinar we are offering is the GAD Agenda, the formulating the GAD strategic framework and the GAD strategic plan. This will be on November 18, 2021 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Registration will also start on September 28 at 2 p.m. These are free webinars for all government agencies to be offered on a first-come, first-served basis. Please feel free to check the PCW website for session description, resource persons, and other details. We thank you in advance for participating again in our succeeding webinars. As I end my message, allow me to quote one of our most notable heroes, Josefa Elaine Escoda. If you happen to survive and I fail, tell our people that the women of the Philippines did their part also in making the ember sparks of truth and liberty alive till the last moment. Let this be a reminder that women have been present in all periods in our history, and may this encourage us to strive to amplify their voices. On behalf of the PCW, we congratulate Heidelin Diaz, Nesty Petesio, Carlo Paalam, Emor Marshall, and all our athletes who competed in the Tokyo Olympics. Through their example, we have seen once again how nakaya ni Juana at nakaya ni Juan na buhatin ang bansa tungo sa tagumpay. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you very much for that wonderful message, Edie Gray. It is indeed a wonderful month as we are celebrating a lot of events that make us proud as Filipinos. We have the Buwan ng Wikang Pambansa, the National Heroes Day, and we are also celebrating the 12th year anniversary of the Magna Carta of Women, since it was signed into law on August 14, 2009. Finally, we are also celebrating our modern day heroes, as you have mentioned, the historic success of 2 women in the field of sports, Heidelin Diaz, who won the Philippines' first ever Olympic gold medal, and Nesty Petesio, who is the first woman from the Philippines who have won a boxing Olympics medal and received a silver. Together with the rest of the Philippine team who brought us pride, may they serve as a reminder to us that proper planning, execution, and perseverance can really make us achieve as envisioned. As agents of change, we have the power to empower and that we can contribute to the attainment of gender equality and gender empowerment. Thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. Thank you.